Good evening, guys. Hello. Hello. I know a couple minutes late. Sorry. Was spending some time with the lovely future Mrs. Martin 2.0. And, yeah, lost a little bit of track of time there, guys. My apologies. Kimbo says you only eat deep dish before bed. As soon as I open the chat, that's what I see. Thanks. Oh. Clyde needs to be on the thumbnails. He is the star. I'll work on those. I'll figure out a way to put him in there. So, oh, did I misspell in the title? So, did not try to misspell there. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Wednesday. It's already Wednesday. It's crazy. We're almost done with March. I mean, it's actually very interesting. I mean, can you believe it? It's almost springtime. We're almost there. Chat. So, will I come with a clever name for the channel members? Could we be the potentially criminals? I think you guys have already come up with the name, so I'm going to leave that alone. Digger number 48 reporting for duty. I think you're in the wrong channel. That's where it needs to go. Jennifer Thomas, actually, this is an interesting first one to pass along the case. If you haven't heard, the media coverage has been denied by Judge Cole. Yes, it has, but I will say in the meantime, Judge Cole has also denied the experts, but Richard Allen and the people who have donated, I know some of you guys probably have. If you have, I know, thank you very much. You're helping him fight, the system at this point. He's raised at least $15,000, and that was as of like this morning. So hopefully it's a lot more to their goal of $25,000 and get for their experts. And I'm hoping he can meet that and at least get some experts in, because right now what's happening to him is just absolutely fucking mind-boggling. So thank you to everybody who did. Let's see, what else are we talking about tonight? So we are going to be covering the case of Chad Doreman. And this is a case that it happened in Ohio, so I have the ability to talk about it a little bit more in depth than some of these other states. And I also didn't want to start George Kelly till tomorrow. There's a lot there. But also, from what I've been told, the first day, especially the opening arguments, aren't necessarily the best. And the arguments really aren't of self-defense. It's an issue of identity. And I think it's more of who did it. And it's not George Kelly that did it. So we'll get into that. He's the guy down in Arizona who's alleged to have shot at some migrants crossing the border through his property. Some of them may have been armed. Well, let's see here. What else? Where are you guys at here? Leighton Diddy. Diddy is still unaccounted for. We don't know where Diddy's at. He's still alive, apparently. Rabbit says we need a Ryder truck emoji. I'll work on that. Sean came up with a new name for a female for a female of color, Defene. No. Yes, the bondage master only chats. Yes, that's what you guys will be considered. The new members are considered bondage masters, experienced bondage masters. Yes, happy Holy Week, and this is I can't believe it's that time already. I do think it's very good timing, though, that Easter is March 31st. Because if Easter was on April Fool's Day, that would be very hilarious, but also it would just be like perfect fuel for all the militant atheists out there. But yes, happy Holy Week for anybody out there who does celebrate it. I know not all of you do. I know some of you guys are, in the other branch of the Christian tree, but hey, you're trying. Also, to everybody out there, Lent is almost over. So, we're almost there. So, And today actually is called, I forget what it's called. I forget what day of the, oh God, I forget what's the day is called, but it's the day that, today's the day Judas cuts his deal and gets 30 pieces of silver, but I forget what it's called. So I know it's just called like Holy Wednesday because that's kind of cheat. So you can't use that. Did he do it? I think so. It's not looking very good. Thought you literally meant a doorman. No, Chad Doreman. So, anyway, the way the Chad Doreman story starts, he's accused of murdering his 3 sons, and 3, 4, and 7 with a rifle. He wounds his wife, and his daughter's being held at gunpoint, and she escapes. The police catch him, and during that time, after his arrest, he confesses while he's in police custody. His attorneys entered a not guilty by reason of insanity. On top of that, they suppressed his statements made to the police, and the court struck those down. The court suppressed the statements, and it's very interesting because you look at this and say, like, well, how did the police messed up, or they did something kind of like goofy, and that's and people are like, oh, well, it was a ticky-tack thing, or it was a technicality. Well, sometimes it is. The police didn't do everything perfectly, and you can get stuff suppressed. But this one, we're gonna read through it. You guys are gonna be like a little like, wait, what? Like, how did they think they were gonna get away with this? How did they, who in their right mind thought this was a good idea? And that's where, it's interesting in that regard how this starts out. But to get started on this, we are going to start with Chad's arrest, because he's been in custody ever since then. Yeah, Easter feels super early. It does. It is so early. Content Lasagna says, can I be the trainee bondage master? After what we saw happen with Schweikert, nope. No trainees, only experienced bondage masters only in this club. We don't want you punching anybody in the dick. J-Rock's Ash Wednesday. Har, 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 har. It's not Ash Wednesday. Did he escape? I don't think so. Is Usher safe? No. I mean, remember, guys, we read through that document. Like Usher, Biebs, Diddy, Chris Brown, like all kinds of dudes are going to go down for this. And that's just the ones we know of. So it's not very, very good. Also, it's Ramadan. Yeah, if you celebrate Ramadan, I guess, have a happy Ramadan. AAA rated bondage masters only, yes. Usher did get the herpes, yes. And Cat Williams sounding less crazy all of a sudden. Nas won. Yeah, allegedly Jay-Z might be involved in this too, and if Jay-Z really is involved in it, then Nas really did win the war. Which, at the time, like Jay-Z said, your first was your other was Illmatic. That's a one hot album every 10-year average. When he's like, nigga, that's so lame. Yeah. We can see that. Also, there's no real updates on what happened at the bridge. The bridge did go boom out in Baltimore. So we've got some things to talk about tomorrow, but let's get to Chad Doreman. So this is what happened when he got arrested. And that's not sharing because it's not there. This happened all in June of last year, June 15th last year, down in Claremont County, Ohio, way down south, down by Cincinnati. So here we go.
Where's he at?
Here. He's better. Shooter's on the porch.
Get him right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked about the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We know we got a visual in the veil. Not showing his hands, not following commands.
Stand up now!
Not showing hands, so we're following commands.
You gotta go.
name is Chad Doreman. Chad Doreman.
I know, but we can't.
If people need first aid and he's not complying, and you know he's the shooter, shoot him.
We got.
He's not complying, and you know he's the shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first.
So you guys can tell they're already not fucking around with this guy. They are not fucking around. They're gonna like, basically, they fucking light him up. They are this close to fucking dusting him right now. Even probably more so than normal. They're ready to fucking drop him.
I know, but we can't.
If people need first aid and he's not complying, and you know he's the shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first.
Also, bonus points. The cop's got an RMR on top of his pistol.
So we ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see them. Don't take cover behind her. We see them. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6 cover, 29 and...
You have concealment, not cover. Those bullets are gonna cut. If he starts shooting, none of that's cover. That's all concealment. None of that's, I mean, if you wanted to come around the side of those trees and came up like that, that might be a better move, but advancing straight in this way? Okay. I mean, at least Winnie's got a rifle out.
63 attack on.
Show us your fucking hands now! Stand up! Stand up!
Also, that camper is not cover. That is concealment.
Up! Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand the fuck up!
EMS to stage and air carrier is going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands up here.
72.
Tell them we're 21. It's in the air.
If those guys can confirm that there's people that need first aid and that's the shooter, he's not complying, they need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. They have to shoot him and shoot him.
Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody.
That was an interesting comment. If they need to get aid to the victims, he's not complying. Just fucking shoot him. That's a unique radio call. Oh, thankfully they got the right guy and nobody else got shot, because that'd have been really awkward if somebody said that over the radio.
I'm completely sober. Never did drugs a day
63,
in my
we're
life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs when I was little, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 up.
Gatlin.
63, we're 21.
Knock
Have
it off.
EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, just started mass casualty response.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard.
That's his wife in the background screaming about him shooting at her and everybody.
What are you doing, man?
Hey, are you copying all this?
Can I roll over?
Yes, he's cuffed and yelling at the dog. Yes, he's trying to tell his dog to go inside so his dog don't get shot, which ain't a bad idea.
I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him.
All right.
He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't running
second.
away. You can do whatever you want with me.
You know, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just sitting here next to a rifle, and all my family I tried to baptize. So, you know, there ain't nothing going on, man. Yup.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yeah.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran over to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in the cage.
Listen, look. Listen, look.
They're all being advised to come. They've requested 2 additional medics. There's also aircraft flying, so they need an LV and then coming.
Can you get the wallet out of my back pocket?
Shut up, dude.
21.
You had the right to remain silent and fucking use it.
I mean, you know, of the Miranda warnings there, it's like, you know, one of, you know, the Miranda scale, you could say, of like all the checkpoints there, like 1 of 7 met. But the most important one, shut the fuck up.
Yes, sir.
Take the call, right on the last start now. I'm almost there. Yeah, 90 is where Chief and Captain's away.
21. The firehouse is advising them that the male shot the entire family.
And the stepdaughter got out. She ran across the street to the fire department and told them all about it. And the firefighters called 911. So.
7.
You're clear.
Here.
Shooter's calling the force.
Get him
right here.
Down on the floor.
We've asked, that's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk to me! Walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
And guys, this is from the other officer's view, but I think it's just interesting to see how they just, yeah. They came up on him.
Show me your hands now! Stand up! Stand up!
I will say in hindsight, I do give them credit. They're saying the same things. They're not like, one guy saying, show me your hands, stand up, get down. Like, they're not doing that crap.
Moving, hold it. Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand up!
EMS is staged and air carrier is going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands out of here.
So that's what happened to him. Now, his attorneys filed a not guilty by reason of insanity plea. So that is where we are with things. The cop giving good legal advice, yes. Yes, very much true. And that's taxpayer gas. Easy on the accelerator. Yeah, I know. How dare they? Dude cares more about his dog than his stepkids. Well, some of those kids were his kids. The daughter is older. That's not his. The stepdaughter got away and called. Well, she got to the fire department. They called police. But he's probably better he's not moving at all. Yeah, you got to be careful about that stuff. Sometimes they might still shoot you anyway. So got to be careful. Got to be careful there. And damn it, I forgot to upload the thumbnail. I feel like an idiot. So Swissgar says for $5 there isn't a fate too horrid for this guy. Well, we'll get to that. Yeah, all the boys were his, and then the one he didn't kill, he didn't get a chance to kill the daughter, the stepdaughter. She ran away. So he was holding her at gunpoint, and he had wounded the wife. So it's not clear why he did it. There's some allegations. He says like the CIA was talking to him, like he's crazy. And his attorneys have filed for not guilty by reason of insanity. So that is we're still progressing through that stage. I think recently the second opinion came back, but I don't think we've the suppression issue was the next big thing that came up there. Then Unknown Hero for $2 says, "Oh, I'm gonna come." Now, his attorneys filed suppression, and they suppressed the statements he made to the sheriff's deputies because he was arrested. And where is it? Dang it, I just lost it. All right. And he made these statements to the Claremont County Sheriff's Department. So a motion to suppress was had, and the court released its ruling about a week or two ago. And you always remember Daniel Shavery. That's never a bad idea. So, the CIA excuses classic Ohioan. Well, hey, that's what Ohio man does. See, delusional schizophrenic, who knows what he is. He might have been an asshole. Who knows? We don't know yet. I don't know yet. So, but the court actually granted the motion to suppress. And let's go through why. Some of these things, guys, you're going to look at this and listen to this, and some of you are going to say, okay, yeah, I understand that's bullshit, but some of this you're going to look at and say, wait, the police did what now? Especially in 2023. This isn't something that happened 15 years ago. This is something that happened literally almost 10 months ago. So here we go. So this is in the Claremont County Court of Common Pleas. And in Ohio, that's like Superior Court in other states. This is where felonies happen, is in the Court of Common Pleas. Because it handles all the pleas that you would normally handle, like taking care of probates, divorces, juvenile matters, felony matters. Those are done in the Court of Common Pleas. So they get through it. They talk about, there's a couple things here in the footnotes. There are some things where things were numbered, so don't worry about those when we read past them. So defendant's motion to suppress and in limine. And now, motion in limine, we talked about that before. That's you were trying to preclude issues coming in front of the jury at trial. I did forget to mention the Claremont County grand jury and prosecutor brought 21 counts to him, 21 felony counts, including aggravated murder, and along with that, death penalty specification. So they're seeking the death penalty against him. So we're playing for keeps right now. Everybody's playing for keeps. They had a motion to suppress, was held on February 21st. And everybody, after they had the hearing, the defense counsel was to submit a closing argument by February 8th. The state gave a written closing argument by March 7th. That's not uncommon at times. I've had those. I've had at bench trials. You get that option too at times where you're making the arguments. You're going to make a bunch of factual and legal arguments. You get to do a written thing afterwards. That's kind of normal here in Ohio. So if that doesn't seem normal for where you're from, that's, like I said, we all do it differently. So the defense written closing argument was filed timely. The state's filed timely. So the pertinent background. So he's alleged to have killed his 3 sons, 7, 4, and 3 on June 15th. All were killed at the family home in a rural southeasterly area of Claremont County. He also seriously wounded another child and his wife. I thought the stepdaughter had not been wounded, but yeah. So he was apprehended, immediately taken into custody. He was secured in the back seat of a cruiser that was parked on Laurel Lindale Road. I think it's funny they blot that out, but that part's in. You could figure out pretty quick because the fire department's across the street. So how many fire departments are on Laurel Lindale Road in Claremont County, Ohio? None. He remained in the cruiser for 50 minutes until he was taken to the sheriff's office in Batavia, Ohio. The 21-count indictment, and he stands 9 counts of aggravated murder, each coupled with 3 capital aggravating circumstances. So the 3 capital aggravating circumstances are the death penalty specifications, 8 counts of kidnapping, and 4 counts of felonious assault. So now he didn't murder 9 people. But for each one of those children, they're charging him under 3 different parts of the aggravated murder statute. So that's how they're getting the 9 separate things. He didn't kill 9 people. But they're probably charging him with the premeditation. They're probably charging him as part of felony murder, which is a death penalty eligible way of getting it in Ohio. So there's a couple different ways they can do it. 8 counts of kidnapping. Well, obviously there weren't 8 people involved, but they're charging it multiple ways. And then 4 counts of felonious assault. Obviously, wounding the wife and then wounding the daughter or hurting the daughter or pointing a firearm at her. Those are felonious assaults that I'm not sure with the other 2, if it's for mom and daughter as well. I'm not sure. Now, there were a couple different the state presented 6 witnesses. Deputy Popham, Deputy Rudd, and Melissa Schemes. Then a detective. 2 detectives. A detective named Michael Ross, and then Renee Butcher, a social worker employed by Child Focus. A professional services for inmates, and they provide mental health for inmates in the jail. And that's not uncommon, at least here in Ohio. You have mental health contracted out to a local agency or group, and they come in and talk to people and try to help make sure they're all good, or if they do need services, try to line them up for them, because they do have caseworkers, they do have therapists, counselors who do see some people from time to time in the jails. So yeah, that all makes sense. And then finally, there was Amy Griffin, a nurse employed by the jail, who provides medical treatment. So they had multiple things that were done there. Deputy Popham's body camera while at the scene, and their video recording captured on Deputy Rudd's body camera. And then while he was at transport, they also did an example. The state admitted a copy of the Miranda advisement card. So you see that thing cops always read off of? That's a Miranda advisement card. Used by Detective Ross prior to his interrogation. They also did the audio and video recordings at the interrogation, that same day. They also have a recording that happened with the social worker. And then they have a video and audio recording of him meeting with the nurse. The defense did not call, the defendant didn't testify, and you never have to at a suppression. You don't ever testify at a suppression hearing. No, never happening. But the court points it out, and that's not a Fifth Amendment violation. It's just a record matter-of-fact issue. And the defense called no witnesses and presented no other evidence. Now, the motion to suppress is directed only to the statements made by the defendant after he is transported from the scene and initially interrogated at the sheriff's office and then transferred to the county jail. Because remember, with Miranda, it's interrogation plus custody equals Miranda has to be invoked, has to be given. If he wasn't in custody but he was being interrogated, there isn't a Miranda issue. Or if he's in custody but not being interrogated, still no Miranda. You have to have part 1 and part 2 before you get to A plus B equals C. You need both A and B. So there are 3 instances of the statements that are being challenged. The first one is the custodial interrogation that took place at the sheriff's office, and that's the first one. The second one's the interview that took place in his jail cell after he was transferred from the sheriff's office. And then her interview was related to mental health issues. And then the final one was by the nurse, because he was complaining of chest pains and requested medical attention. Now, there are a couple different things he raised as part of problems with the custodial interrogation. Detective Ross failed to, and I don't actually think we have a copy of that interview. Because I don't think it, is it? I don't know if it's available yet. It wasn't the last time I looked, unless I messed it up. So, yeah, I don't think it's been released as far as I know at this point. So, that's the problem with it. We don't have the interview yet. It wasn't leaked. It hasn't been released. And I just double checked to make sure I hadn't missed it. They don't make good movies anymore. Yes, custodial interrogation. Yes, So, oh, Jim. He subscribed to the ethics of Leon. No women, no kids. Well, no female kids. Just Aaron Fraud says if double jeopardy is wrong, charging someone 3 times for the same crime is wrong. Well, here's the thing. So, I guess let me posit to you this way. You commit robbery. Okay, so you come in there with a shotgun and you commit robbery at a gas station. I could charge you with robbery, aggravated robbery, because let's say the jury believes that your gun wasn't real. You still took money by force. Okay, that's robbery. And on top of that, I could also charge you with theft, misdemeanor theft, because you still took money. You took something that didn't belong to you. Are those all stacking really at that point? Because let's say the jury doesn't believe he did it premeditatively, but he did it as a result of his kidnapping or his felonious assault, or let's say they believe a different theory. Well, those jurors have the right to believe a different theory, but it should be charged as a separate offense. And if they can prove all of them, and from what I understand, they have more than enough evidence, like he's got a lot going on in there. So, yes, they did not let the janitor interview him. Yes, what is robbery without theft? Yes, but that's the way it does. Stacy says, but charging for each bullet. Well, they're not charging for each bullet. I guess we'll break this down here. Okay, so we'll do this. And actually, I think I found it before, but hold on, we'll bring this up. Since we're... Oh, okay, I do actually have access to it. Okay, good, we'll bring this up. Okay, so this is Chad Doreman's indictment. I thought I had it somewhere. I had to find it. So he's got multiple counts here. Now, if you guys would look at this thinking, wow, this looks kind of like it's typed up in Word, I know the computer program they use for this is called Matrix. It works with Microsoft Word. It's part of a case management software. This is pretty much what most indictments of the state of Ohio look like, just so you know. It's nothing flashy like some places. So, aggravated murder with U.S. specifications. Okay. So, on or about June 15th, Chad did, with prior calculation and design, cause the death of one of his kids in violation of 2903.01a. Okay. The victim's under the age of 13 murder specification. The course of conduct specification. That the offensive bar, obviously they're under 13. The course of conduct involved the purposeful killing of another or attempt to kill 2 or more persons. There's a felony murder specification. So, that he did this while attempting to commit or fleeing after committing a violent offense, and the murder was cause of it. So, that includes the inherently violent felonies. So, and in his situation here was attempting to commit or fleeing after immediately committing or attempting to commit kidnapping, which is what he's accused of doing. And either the offender was the principal offender of the commission or the aggravated murder, if not the principal, committed with prior calculation and design. Then a firearm specification, okay, he used a gun. Now that's an automatic 3 years tacked on no matter what happens. So, and they also are seeking to forfeit the weapon, and he used a Marlin 22, which, well, I guess that's good enough for a couple little kids. So here's for the other kid. This is for child 2. And we get the same things. At child 3, it's the same thing there. And you see it's all 2903.01a. All right? So, Jeff is, hey, Jeff, how are you doing? Legal Vices, yeah, Jeff, I am a little upset there hasn't been a big train crash where I could talk about it. So, yes, you are right. Jeff, if you guys have not seen his coverage of the bridge collapse and the boat having an collision, which I did not know that. When a boat hits an object that's not a boat, it's an collision. When it hits another boat, it's a collision. I did not know that. So thank you, Jeff. I actually did learn quite a bit from you when I was watching that. Guys, if you haven't seen that coverage, go back and watch it. He deals with boats having oopsie poopsies all the time. That's his industry is built around. Boat's not doing boat things. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, take a look at it. But he is right, though, here. Hannah Gutierrez got charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. And she only killed 1 person. Yeah. So. Those are alternative theories, but 1 count. Yes, but this is, here's the thing, though, KT. I like this better, and I think this is the proper way you should do things. If you have an alternative theory, it should be a separate count. The jury should be forced on each count to decide only once. 1 theory for each count. If you want a separate theory, it should be a separate offense. I think it's far more clean, and it also doesn't allow a jury to do split, or if they want to split the baby, or they want to negotiate it out. No. The jury, if they're going to convict you of count 1, they're convicting under the standard for Part A. That's it. Not Part A, B, and C. I think it should be only done one way. So, what is the rest of this indictment, though? We'll get on to the... Now, see, count 4 is Part B. And look, count 5, Part B. Count 6, it's Part B. All right. Count 7 is Part C. Count 8 is Part C. And guess what count 9 is? Part C. The exact same specifications, though, down here. But what are those specifications, or those parts? So here you go. So Part A is aggravated murder. Okay. No person shall purposefully and or with prior calculation and design cause the death of another or the termination of another's pregnancy. Okay. No person shall purposely cause the death of another or the unlawful termination of another's pregnancy while committing or attempting to commit, or while fleeing from committing or attempting to make kidnapping, which would happen here, rape, aggravated arson, aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, trespass in a habitation when a present is, well, okay, I kind of messed that up there because, so anyways, it's kidnapping, rape, aggravated arson, aggravated robbery. Now, when you guys see the aggravating, generally you do it where you've caused harm while doing it or used a weapon in the commission of it. So aggravated robbery versus robbery, I actually cause injury to you or I use weapons in it, typically. There are other ways to do it. Then trespass in a habitation, think of this as kind of like it's a low-level felony that you can get probation for, but it kind of bridges the gap between trespassing, but you haven't really committed burglary. It's kind of like an unlawful entry. And like breaking and entering doesn't apply because breaking and entering is usually to a detached structure. But trespass in a habitation is kind of like burglary light. It's actually, no, it happens enough. It happens enough. And then this is this part here, though. This part here is the rest of what the statute is called. Then there's terrorism or escape. Now, they're called the inherently dangerous, inherently violent felonies. In law school, it's called BARC. Burglary, arson, rape, robbery, and kidnapping. There's 5 of them. And it spells out BARC. That's how you remember it. These are the inherently violent felonies that exist. Generally, that's why you're also allowed to use deadly force to stop a kidnapping. You can use deadly force to stop a rape, an arson, a robbery, a burglary. Because those are inherently violent and dangerous felonies where people either die or they're severely injured. You can also do it to stop terrorism, and that's also why the police are allowed to use deadly force if you're trying to escape. Escape is an inherently violent and dangerous offense, and the people who do go out on the lam after they've escaped are very violent and can kill people typically. So that's that one. That's Part B. So obviously in his situation, it would be the kidnapping and the felonious assault. Or I'm sorry, the kidnapping and, in this case, actually that'd be the only one here. Because none of the others apply because he's in his own home. But he did attempt to commit kidnapping by holding people against their will. That's kidnapping. And then no person shall purposely cause the death of another who was under 13 years of age at the time of the commission. So there you go. That's how you get it, because he committed it 3 separate ways. He can't be convicted 9 separate times. Now, what can happen? The jury can say, yes, you committed aggravated murder by killing somebody as you kidnapped them. Yes, they can find him guilty of that. They can find him guilty of murdering somebody who's also under the age of 13 at the same time. And then they could also decide, yeah, he premeditated it, okay, with prior calculation and design. He could do all 3 at once, but he can only be sentenced on 1. That's because it's merger. They merge together. But the jury could determine, yeah, you know what? We all agree he premeditated. We all agree he kidnapped. And we all agree the kids were under 13. You know, these are alternate theories, but the jury has to agree on each one independently if they want to convict. Not like Hannah Reid, where like these were all squished together and the jury could kind of pick and choose. That's the bad way of doing it. This way, the way it's done, that's why I had a problem with it, because in Ohio, you can't do that stuff. If you want to charge separate offenses, they're separate offenses. And let's say like 3 of the jurors like this one, 6 of them like this one, and like 11 of them like this one. Well, then they can't convict. But in somebody like Hannah Reid's situation, let's say of those 3, one of them was the holdout for the 11. They could say, okay, well, we'll combine these 2, and we get a guilty verdict. I don't like how they can do that. So you may not like this, but this is a fairer way of handling things, in my opinion, at least. Okay. Then if you've under detention as a result of being found guilty, or having pled guilty to a felony, and you purposely cause the death of another, that's also how you can get the death penalty in Ohio. If you cause the death of a law enforcement officer when you know they're a law enforcement officer, if you at the time you're committing an offense. You know, they're engaged as being a cop. If you're trying to kill a cop, so you happen to know Officer Bob in town as a cop, and you're out and you shoot him while he's at the grocery store because you know he's a cop, you can get it there. You can't cause the death of a first responder or military member if you know that they are that. And that means you're guilty of aggravated murder. So, yeah. That's how that works. I hope that explains things for a little bit for you guys. So I hope that does explain it. Hey Clyde, bark. We are dog sitting, so you might hear other dogs barking. So, how do we know he's aggravated at the time of the murder? You're a funny guy, Sully. You're a funny guy. That's not how that works. Yes, suffer, chat. Yes, you must suffer. Those seem like separate charges to me, not the same charge 3 times. Well, but that's where I guess if you like that better, good. Because this is how we do it in Ohio. We don't fuck around with people. I prefer much how we do this compared to other states. Because other states, they do all kinds of fucked up things. So I understand. The way they do that in other states, I agree, is charge stacking. But here it's, yeah, you committed murder 3 different ways, so we're going to charge it 3 different ways. So that's how we do it here. We don't play all those faggot games other states play. So, does someone have to know a person's under 13 for that one to apply? No, that's a strict liability offense. If you're worried about that, you shouldn't kill people. To be fair, though, if you kill somebody who's disabled, you kill someone who's over the age of 65, or you kill a law enforcement member or first responder or a person in the military, those ones you have to know who they are. But like if they're disabled, that's kind of on you. If you kill an elderly person, that's on you too. So just my word of advice is just don't kill people. You don't have to worry about it. But I agree. You know, at some points, yeah. Joe Lieberman is dead. Happy trails. You thought Ohio was just a bunch of rednecks, though? Well, I mean, we are, but we're cultured rednecks. Since they merge, it makes more sense. Yeah, you can't get. So yeah, if you get charged with robbery, aggravated robbery in Ohio, first degree aggravated robbery, second degree robbery, and first degree misdemeanor theft, and you get convicted of all three, the most you can face is 3 to 11 years in prison. They can't stack them all up. Now, if you commit aggravated robbery against, like if I go out and rob Jeff, legal vices, with a gun, that's aggravated robbery. And then I go over to Nick's house, and while Nick's walking down the street, I rob him and steal his Baldo. That's robbery and aggravated robbery. Those charges can get stacked up. But if it's only the same instance in the same course of conduct, they all become one offense. Not legal advice? Well, I think that's pretty good legal advice. Don't go killing people. I'm okay with giving that one out. So let's keep going on this because, like I said, guys, this is very interesting. So the court summarizes a couple of the claims in the interrogation. That the detective failed to properly advise the defendant of his pre-custodial interrogation rights as enunciated in Miranda. Okay. A valid waiver of his Miranda rights was not obtained because he was never given a copy of his rights. And the valid waiver of his Miranda rights were not obtained because Doreman was never asked to sign a written waiver. That's issue 3. The defendant unequivocally invoked his right to counsel, yet they continued thereafter unabated. The detectives employed outrageous police conduct during the interrogation to such an extent the will of the defendant was overcome, thereby rendering any statements made involuntary. So there's 5 points. And very quickly, the court says the second and third claims are immediate without merit. And if you notice, there is this thing here. In the matter of TDS. That does not mean Trump derangement syndrome. That is a juvenile. And the juveniles are done by abbreviation. And if you want to know how important it is, this right here is a big clue. Ohio State third. Anything with the recording of Ohio State in the reporter is from the Supreme Court of Ohio. It's the only one that's in. So that means the Supreme Court came down and it was 2024 Ohio 595. Meaning that is piping hot. That is this year. And actually, what day was this? 'Cause I forgot. February 21st. So it's very good. It's very good. It's right before they had their hearing, because this came out February 21st, this case, and they had the hearing on this. What day did they have it? They had their suppression hearing the same fucking day. The same fucking day. This came out, and this came out. So there you go. This is a slip opinion, and this is in re TDS. And it was done February 21st, 2024. Out of the Court of Appeals for Cuyahoga County. If you guys know where that is, that's Cleveland. And that's where it said, look, TDS a juvenile. A churdlin. And this all does also stem from the homicide of another juvenile. So, anyway, getting back to what we were looking at. Let's get back to it. It's very aggravating to get robbed. It is, yes. Not the Baldo. I get that. Stealing another man's Baldo. That's low, Sean. You could almost argue that's terrorism because I know how much it means to him. Sure 13 says they must have punched him in the balls. Yes, they were not experienced bondage masters in the police department. And Chaucer Fraud says, I think if they can violate the rights of a person who's a monster, that's not good. You still got to follow the rules. Yep. If they'll do that to somebody they hate, imagine what they'll do to everybody else. Slip it in the back, yeah. Okay, well, anyways, we're going to get going here. So the court says the first 2 points are automatic without merit. And because the court reaffirmed the following well-settled principle of law. Now, to be fair, I've bitched and moaned about these before, and you usually get laughed at, but you still make the arguments that you didn't give him a waiver and he was never asked to sign one. And because you just make the cops look sloppy. But now there's actually like super hot case law on it that whether asked if he understood, so they go to this case. The detective asked TDS whether he understood his rights, and he nodded his head and continued to answer the detective's questions. The kid points out he wasn't given a copy of the warnings and he didn't sign a waiver, but there's no requirement under Ohio law that a waiver be written. And that's true. You can waive it verbally, but it makes things, you can hammer on the fact they're sloppy and they suck. Just one more thing you can do, because you have written waivers, right? Have you been trained that's probably a good idea? And if they say no, it's like, but you have them, right? And you don't think it's a good idea to use them? You can make the cop look like an idiot. But it's not policy. It's a best practice. The fifth claim is set forth as also without merit. As will be addressed in more detail, the recordings of the interrogation of the defendant are exhibits 4A and 4B. These two recordings approximately are 3 hours and 11 minutes. However, between these two recordings, there's a 1 hour when the defendant was sitting in the interview room and no interrogation took place. Thus, the real-time custodial interrogation was just a little over 2 hours. The interview room was small, windowless, perhaps 8 by 12. And there's a small desk in the corner with a chair. Doreman sat in a padded cushioned straight back chair next to the desk. There's another chair in the rear corner the officer could sit. And they talk about how do you challenge the voluntariness of a confession? Well, you have to look at the totality of the circumstances. What's the age of the person, their mentality, their prior criminal experience? So yeah, if you've been arrested like 25 times, you're considered a sophisticated criminal. Let's say you haven't been convicted, though. You're sophisticated. You understand the game. You understand the dance. It's your first time being arrested. Well, things are a little different. You're like, I'm just learning the ropes. I don't know what to do. The length of the interrogation, 2 hours versus 15 hours. The intensity. Are the cops yelling at you, screaming at you, treating like shit? The frequency of interrogation. Do they interview you 3 or 4 times, an hour and a half, but 3 or 4 times, like in a row? The existence of physical deprivation or mistreatment. And the existence of threat or inducement, which those happen all the time. A waiver will not be deemed involuntary unless there is evidence of police coercion, such as physical abuse, threats or deprivation of food, treatment, or sleep. Now, the defendant's claims are separated into 2 categories. The first relates to the interrogation. The arguments related to this are set forth in Section 1, and they talk about his arguments in his memorandum. The second category relates to the butcher interview. And they point out that these claims are kind of tied together because there's a little bit of bleed between these cases or between these situations, between the interrogation interview and the interview with the caseworker. So we're going to get to now the actual kind of depth of everything here. As to the custodial interrogation, the defense argues the individual circumstances of suspect can make some perhaps less obviously coercive conduct cross the line and the resulting confession involuntary. And this is from a treatise. This is Ohio Arrest, Search, and Seizure. And it's actually a really good book. It's a good treatise. It's got a lot of information in it. In assessing the involuntariness of a confession, they should look at the totality of circumstances, including the characteristics of the individual suspect. And that's Ashcraft versus Tennessee, and that's from 1944. It's a Supreme Court case. And Chambers v. Florida, 1940 case. Those are 2 very big ones when it comes to interrogations and confessions. It is submitted that the totality of circumstances here, including Doreman's mental condition, show their actions overcame his will and his admissions were therefore involuntary. There's no evidence before the court as to the defendant's mental... The court says, though, there's no evidence before the court as to his mental condition during the interrogation. The defendant did not testify, nor did he present any evidence to even suggest what his mental condition was at the time. The defense did not cross-examine the interrogating detectives to ascertain their opinions of the defendant's mental condition during that process. Although, to be fair, the defense, if you were the defense attorney and you go up there and you ask the detective, "Hey, detective, what do you think happens?" What's the detective going to say? "Hey, detective, how crazy do you think this guy was at the time?" You know what the detective's going to say every time? "He seemed pretty sane to me. He seemed fine." He would say, "I'm trained to recognize mental health issues, and if somebody was truly in crisis and I thought they were not competent, I would not be subjecting them to an interrogation. I think that would be unethical." Well, we know they're full of shit. So, we know they're full of crap. John Coleman for $5 says, "Why do I always feel like I'm playing Tuck-a-Buck when I give these super chats?" You basically are, more or less, when you think about it. To your pantry fund. "I'll give you more if you don't say hails." Well, I told you. I already read my thing. I read that CPO. I told you it's bullshit. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm just telling you guys, it's sussy as fuck. It's sussy as going to an underwear party to talk to people. I'll leave it at that. So, further, the defense does not elaborate or identify what constitutes totality of the circumstances relative to the above claim. So the court's saying the defendants dropped the ball a little there, but a court's not required to scour the record to find evidence to support a movement's argument, and that's true. Nevertheless, the court considers the following claims raised by the defendant's memorandum to be asserted to challenge the legitimacy of the interrogation. The following claims are set forth. In this case, the totality of the circumstances include: Chad Doreman was in jail. He had no power, no agency in the situation. No one in his position could reasonably think otherwise. At least one CCSO, and CC means Claremont County Sheriff's Office, officer threatened him prior to this. Detective Schubert said outside the cruiser where Doreman was sitting, loud enough to be heard, "Is that the motherfucker?" "Yeah. Shut the door so I don't fucking kill him." The CCSO detectives have previously ignored his request for counsel. That's a big one, guys. That's a big one. That's a huge one. The detectives used coercive tactics during the interrogation, including Detective Ross comparing to a monster. His mental state was such that he could not make a knowing, intelligent, or voluntarily consent to police being present had he been asked. He was in no condition to object to their presence. They're saying, as Stephen Lorenzo said, the mind fuck. He was too mind fucked. He was not informed of the recordings and did not know police were recording the conversations. I've said, I make that one a lot. Judges tend to laugh, but you make the argument. And then the outrageous police conduct herein should not be countenanced. The court will address each of the claims as listed. That the defendant was in jail is certainly correct. The court agrees, yes, he was in jail. That he had no power, no agency in the situation, and no one in his position could think otherwise is nothing more than Dixon self-serving conclusion of counsel. This is not evidence of physical abuse, threats, deprivation of food, sleep, treatment that would constitute coercion. Yes. Walt is seen walking along Laurel Lindale Road to a separate cruiser. Detective Schubert walks past the cruiser holding the defendant. He did other profane words veiled as and veiled threat is set forth above, but the claims he uttered those words loud enough to be heard begs the question, by who? There's no allegation the defendant heard them, and no evidence was adduced at the hearing that he did. The court reviewed Rudd's body-worn camera that recorded those words. The detective was walking at a normal pace as he was going to his cruiser. As he approached Rudd's cruiser with the defendant in the back, he was about 6 or 7 feet away from the driver's side of the cruiser. He did not stop walking over to the defendant and utter those words. He kept walking away from Rudd's cruiser. These statements may have taken 4 to 7 seconds to utter, and they were uttered in a normal conversational tone. He did not shout these words. Well, that's a bit of an issue. At the time he uttered those words, there were other deputies standing in the same area. There was ambient police radio conversations close to the detective and the defendant that can be heard when the words were uttered. The rear door of Rudd's cruiser was only partially ajar and the window was only down about halfway. So I don't see how you don't think he couldn't hear them, but whatever. Just prior to Schubert's walk by, Rudd had turned up the air conditioning in his car. The defendant had complained it was hot as hell, increasing the noise level inside Rudd's cruiser. Still, he's in the back of a car, and the air things are not in his face. That's up front, and there's a divider. I think this is a bit of a cop-out by the court. Court finds it most unlikely the defendant could have even heard those words. And during the final 40 minutes of the interrogation, Detective Schubert enters the room for the first time. He's wearing the same clothing as during his walk by. The defendant gave no indication he recognized Schubert, that he had seen him while in Rudd's cruiser, or had heard his statements. So basically they're claiming like he didn't go like, "Oh my God, it's you! Don't hit me! Oh please, boss, don't hit me!" Absent any evidence that the defendant heard these statements, this is not evidence of physical abuse or a threat, as it means to gain a confession during the interrogation. So Garrett doesn't apply there. The claim that the detectives had ignored his statement's request for counsel be more related to the recorded statements and not the interrogation. That detectives ignored his request will be more thoroughly addressed below, but standing alone, this claim is not supportive of the factors for police coercion. The first claim of cause that detectives used coercive tactics during the interrogation, once again, is another example of self-serving claims of the defendant. There's no identification of any coercive action consistent. The second cause is that they use the term monster while interrogating the defendant. But the timing and the context belies the defendant's contention here. The custodial interrogation from its inception starts at about 10 to 6 on June 15th. The video runs about 2 hours. The state exhibit 4B picks up where 4A stopped recording and runs for about 1 hour and 12 minutes. This is where he talks about there's that lunch gap or the hour break. They talk about both starting at 0, and he breaks these down by their timestamps and how they're actually recorded out. So that's just for clarification so we can understand what's going on. So the word monster is first uttered by Ross in 4B nearly 2.5 hours after everything starts, and a little over 30 seconds later. So 2.5 hours into it, out of the 3 hours total. And the same thing again, just another minute later. He says, the detective states, "I haven't lied to you. Don't lie to me." Okay. That's a horrible fucking argument. "I've been nothing but kind to you." And the defendant responds saying, "I know and respect you, sir. Golly gee willikers." The interrogation continues for a couple more minutes, and he uses the word monster the last 2 times, a little more than 2.5 hours in again. 2 more times. So the court, he says this thing about monster just in a short time span of about 4 minutes. The courts reviewed this portion, and they don't, without going into details of how this word made it into the interrogation. The court finds that it was a reasonable use of the word in response to statements the defendant made about himself and his personal characteristics during the interrogation. So without seeing the interrogation, I'm assuming Chad already declared himself to be a monster in it. The use of this word was very limited, only 4 times, and they were not uttered in a threatening or overbearing tone. They weren't like, "You are a monster," or speaking like Alex Jones, "You're one of them globalist pot-bellied goblin monsters, aren't you?" So there's a bit of a difference there. And the 4 times is not so overbearing and coercive, the defendant's will was overcome. Thus, the use of this word is not evidence supportive of the factors of police coercion. So they then get on to that he was in such a unable to that his mental state was that he could not make a knowing, intelligent, or voluntary waiver, and he was in no condition to object. Whether directed at any of these, it's self-serving again because what? The defense adduced no evidence to support this bare claim. So there's still nothing there. The final claim, the defendant did not know the police were recording the conversations, appears to be directed at the Butcher interview and the Griffin exam. This claim is of no real consequence to determine the voluntary or involuntary nature of the interrogations. And that's true because what you didn't know they were there, so it doesn't matter if you said them. Demon's Breath says, I don't want to see you kissing goblins. Brandon says, I'm never catching up. How much gay filler is in here, Kinsley? There's no gay filler in this. This is a guy who shot his kids in the head. So there's no gayness. He's not like, we were doing father-son bondage training. None of that. Is he a bondage master? I don't know. Fucker. That's Nick's argument. I've always been kind to you. Fucking A. Fucking hell. Oh. So. Let's keep going here. Let's keep going. Howdy yowdies. Unsubscribe. Yes, those ingratiating. The globalists and their ingratiating, greedy goblins. They don't have alpha brain, chat. So. Okay. So let's keep going here, guys. Just checking in on you in chat there. As noted earlier, the interrogation lasted a little over 2 hours. During that time, he was given a bawa. If you guys are from Britain, you understood that. A can of Coca-Cola, because we call it Coca-Cola here. It's not a can of Coke, but by Coke you mean Coke Pop. No. Can of Coca-Cola means Coca-Cola. Because we're articulate here. Dipping tobacco. Well, that's nice they let him put a fucking pinch in while he was doing this. I wonder if they let him do do you think they just let him do like a little pinch? Or do you think he's like, I want a fucking horseshoe in? He probably did like a top and bottom horseshoe. You know, just sitting there fucking slapping that tin of coke. Also, you wonder, was he like a fine cut guy or a long cut guy? Because long cuts are pussies. Like, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do the fine cut. Skull wintergreen fine cut. That's the shit of champions right there. Offered food, which he declined, and asked if he needed any medications, which he declined. So they did a lot of things right. While his hands were initially cuffed behind his back just prior to the start, the detectives loosened them and then moved his hands in front of his body, which allowed him to stretch his arms from time to time, drink water and Coke, and put the dip in his mouth. That would have been funny if he had it behind his back and he's just like, it's like a old lady going for communion at Catholic church, like, put the dip in. Like everywhere. So the detective's demeanor and inquisitional tone through the interrogation was calm and non-threatening. I think he means non-threatening, not non-threatening. At no time during the 2+ hour interrogation did the detective make any type of threat to the defendant, and the defense, having the same access to the recorded custodial interrogation as the state and the court, identifies none. At no time during the interrogation did any detective make any type of promise of any nature to the defendant, and the defense identifies none. There's not one single act of physical abuse of any nature inflicted upon the defendant during the interrogation. And after more than 90 minutes of being interrogated, even called a monster, the defendant acknowledged that Detective Ross had been nothing more than kind to him and that he respected him. So I guess this means, chat, when you're facing an interrogation, you'd be like, but when the camera's off, you started hitting me and you shoved that nightstick up in my nether regions, in my no-no place. Please don't do it again. And a number of times at the interrogation, the defendant said he was not afraid or scared. Well, So again, guys, I'm not telling you how to take notes, but you might want to take some notes if you're planning on doing any murders anytime soon. On a final note, the issue of alleged involuntary and coerced nature of the defendant's statements, a similar custodial interrogation was addressed in Berghaus v. Tompkins. This is another big case, guys, if you want to remember how they do things. So this is a big one. It's a big Supreme Court case. It's a big one to remember. Tompkins doesn't claim the police threatened him or injured him during the interrogation, or that he was in any way fearful. The interrogation was conducted in a standard-sized room, middle of the afternoon. So it's one thing, it's the middle of the afternoon. That's another thing. They drag you out of you're sleeping in the holding cell. It's like 3:30 in the morning. They drag you out to do it. Yeah, that could be a problem. But, in this case, he had a straight back chair for 3 hours. But there's no authority for the proposition that interrogation of that length is inherently coercive. So the court, having considered the totality of circumstances before it, finds that the statements made by the defendant during the interrogation were voluntary, and this prong of the MTS is denied. So the first claim that Ross failed to full and properly advise the defendant's Miranda rights before they initiated the interrogation. So let's get to that. The last Justice and that's the thing. It's the last Justice Ginsburg. Yes, there'll be no more Ginsburgs ever again. If I have my way. The late Justice Ginsburg referred to Miranda decision as a path-marking decision in Florida v. Powell. The determination of this claim begins with the Miranda decision, and more importantly, the procedural safeguards that must be employed before law enforcement initiates interrogation. In Miranda, the safeguards were defined. So, and this is actually from Miranda v. Arizona, which, if you guys have never read it, it's interesting to read. To summarize, we hold individuals taken into custody or otherwise deprived of his freedom by authorities in any significant way, and here's where we get that formula, custody, and is subjected to questioning. Remember, it's custody and is being subjected to questioning, meaning custody plus interrogation equals Miranda. The privilege against self-incrimination is jeopardized. Procedural safeguards must be employed to protect the privilege, and unless other fully effective means are adopted to notify the person of his right of silence, and to ensure the exercise of the right will be scrupulously honored, the following measures are required. He must be warned that prior to any questioning, he has the right to remain silent. That anything he says can be used against him in a court of law. He has the right to the presence of an attorney, and that if he cannot afford one will be appointed for him prior to any questioning, if he so desires. Notice you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be against you in the court of law. If you cannot afford an attorney will be provided for you at no expense. And you have the right to consult with them before any questioning commences. That's like the 30-second running through it. But the cops have the Miranda card. So like everything you've always heard watching Cops. That's where it all comes from. It's literally how it comes from out of there. Okay? The opportunity to exercise these rights must be afforded throughout the interview. I have the right to stop at any point during an interview. You don't lose them. And here's the thing, guys. If you start talking to the cops, you can always stop. Don't ever talk to them. But at any point, you can always pull the ripcord on your parachute and stop. You can always say, you know what? I want a lawyer. Stops. You can always stop. All right? Think about it. Like you're driving across country. You're driving down the road and you have a weird feeling something's wrong with your car. What can you do? Pull over and stop. You can get out and check. You can always stop. Miranda is not like an airplane that once you take off, that's it. You can always stop. I might have to actually save that. That's actually a pretty good way to phrase that. Stop and then don't start again. Yes. Better if you never start. Yeah, but you know what? That's what happens. Mr. Sniper says, who drinks soda or pop flat? Well, soda is what clowns shoot at people. So. Sweet Tooth says, I shot you. We always should talk to cops. Yeah. Charles Aaron Frost, do you think there's any merit to the idea he was mentally ill and they treated him fairly? You mean Miranda or Chad Doreman? Well, there's some issue about Chad Doreman. I mean, like, some of this sounds like he's fucking insane. I mean, doesn't he? Just a little bit? I mean, I mean, because really at this point now he's claiming he's insane. I mean, that's the thing. Like, as of, and that they actually filed it, I think, yesterday. Actually, wait, no, was it today? Yeah, they did file it today. Yeah, it was filed yesterday. He filed his insanity plea. I don't know if it's clear, but he gets interviewed he gets interviewed before the end of April, so we'll find out pretty quick. And then he has the right to a second interview, or a second opinion. And because it's a death penalty case, they're sure as shit gonna give it. So he's gonna get a second round of interviews. But he could be fucking crazy. I mean, he started fucking executing his whole family. That doesn't necessarily mean he's sane, but remember, criminal insanity versus just normal insanity. Criminal insanity is really high. And even if he wins that, he goes to the fucking state psychiatric hospital. So is that really a win? And you're there forever. You're basically there for the equivalent sentence. So it doesn't really, is that really a better fate? Yeah, you don't get executed, but that's going to be a hell in of itself. Yeah, just something to think about. Just something to think about there. At least that's how I would say it. Miranda and Boeing. Yes. What if the cops have a nice rack? Well, I don't know. Then I guess if you want to simp, you want to simp for a cop, go for it. Simp for a cop. What did his family do to piss him off? I don't know. Maybe they messed up, like the macaroni pictures weren't very good. That's the one thing I could think of. And he's like, God damn it, not again! You misspelled my name. There's not 3 D's in Daddy, damn it! And he smashed it down. He's like, I'm gonna solve this once for all. So let's keep going though. After such warnings have been given and such opportunity afforded, the individual may knowingly and intelligently, you see those two words, knowingly and intelligently, and also becomes part of it with voluntarily, waive these rights and agree to answer questions or make a statement. But unless until such warnings of waiver are demonstrated by the prosecution at trial, no evidence obtained resulting in interrogation can be used against him. These safeguards appear to be seemingly straightforward and easy to implement. Just follow the script. I mean, it's true. They literally tell it, like, the Supreme Court has said, look, guys, listen, broheems, like, all y'all simple, I'm just simple police folk. I just don't understand. Okay, listen, Cletus. Follow the fucking rule. Write it down, just like Mark Robinson says. He's like, write it down. Write down every word. Write it down. And then use it. And the cops go, what does this mean? So, Sean's going to make his used kids go back and do the handprint turkey pictures as many times as it takes to get it right. Yes. Yes. All right. So, in the case of California versus Prysock, the court once again addressed the manner in which the warnings must be done. So the court never indicated the rigidity, it must be a precise formulation. Other courts have stressed the one virtue Miranda, the fact that giving these warnings obviates a need for a case-by-case inquiry. Well, not necessarily. But it gives you the idea, like, if you do this, it really kind of takes away the idea that this wasn't voluntary. It helps a lot. It's not automatically kills it. Quite the contrary. Miranda itself indicated that no talismanic incantation was required to satisfy the strictures. The warnings are required in the waiver necessary in accordance with our opinion today are in the absence of a fully effective equivalent prerequisite. So you don't have to say exactly that, but something that lets them know. And then they talk about how they had to deal with other cases, including Rhode Island v. Innis, which that's actually a case about how does Miranda work and what does it count to induce someone when the guys remain silent, but then the cops start talking about it. Well, what is it that they're doing to elicit that activity? So there are issues about not Second Amendment, but Fourth and Fifth Amendment issues here where the person says, I don't want to talk. There's like New York v. Quarles, where like the guy was in the supermarket and the gun was loose, and they're like, well, where's the gun? And it all happens. Like all this stuff happens, and there's so many ways the cops have fucked around with, what constitutes an interrogation, what constitutes trying to elicit a statement from somebody. Like there's all kinds of things that are out there. And, okay, actually I was going to say, and Innis is another one of them. In Quarles, it was a gun was laying around, and they're like, well, where'd the gun go? Well, in Rhode Island v. Innis was accused of robbery, and the gun he had was gone. The cops were like, man, God forbid one of those kids finds a gun, they might start playing with it. So Innis is like, wait, I'll tell you where the gun's at, because I don't want the kids to get hurt. Well, obviously the cops were fucking with them because they wanted him to talk and tell them where the fucking gun was. They wanted the evidence. So, they have other cases, don't they? Talk about it. They determined if Miranda warnings were a fully effective equivalent to the, script. They talk about Duckworth versus Egan. And that was another one where they had to deal with this. And prior to questioning, the police read him a waiver form. And it said, before we ask you questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions and to have him with you during questioning. You have this right to the advice and presence of a lawyer, even if you cannot afford to hire one. We have no way of giving, and this is where Egan gets different. We have no way of giving you a lawyer, but one will be appointed for you if you wish, if and when you get to court. Now, that's the reality of the situation, typically. It's not like there's a public defender or somebody sitting by who could show up. Now, there are times in certain cases where, like, something big has happened, and they, if a big murder, like, they might get a hold of a public defender to come down and talk to you. Something huge. But just for your average cases, you're not seeing anybody until you get to court and you get assigned counsel. So, or you meet the public defender in your arraignment, in a mass arraignment. So, yeah, I want to see a lawyer. Okay, fine. You sit until they won't talk to you until you get one. That could be 3 weeks. Just saying. If you wish to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering questions any time. And that is nice because they don't all say that. You also have the right to stop answering questions any time until you talk to a lawyer. After reading the form and signed it, the guy confessed to stabbing a woman. Over his objection, the trial court admitted it, and his conviction was confirmed on appeal. And I think that's actually a very effective waiver. Now, I think it's better if they do it in bullet points, but, and that's where you see, like, guys, there's bullet points, and you sign off yes, 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 or no, no, no. After a while, he sought a writ of habeas corpus. It got denied. He appealed it up to the Seventh Circuit, and the Seventh Circuit reversed his decision. They said the advice of counsel would be appointed if and when you go to court was constitutionally defective. In reversing it, they said that, and they reversed, the appellate court's decision got reversed. So, in the absence of a fully effective equivalent, okay, well, that was pretty fucking effective. Miranda also has not been limited to questioning at the police station, and that's where you're talking about Innis. It was in the back of a police car, where they're like, oh boy, I hope those kids don't find that gun. And New York v. Quarles, it was one of the guys laying on the ground and the fucking, like the police are sitting there with, like, their fucking gun on him, saying, like, don't move. They're like, where's your fucking gun? And he's like, and he won't say, they're like, where's your fucking gun? And they said, like, Miranda should have applied at that point. That's the argument Quarles made, and the court said nope. So there are all kinds of rules. The prophylactic Miranda warnings are not themselves rights protected by the Constitution, but are measures to ensure the right is protected against self-incrimination. So the inquiry is simply whether the warnings reasonably convey the suspect his rights. And they think in Egan that the initial warnings given to a respondent touched all the bases required by Miranda. The police told the respondent he had a right to remain silent. They could be used against him in court. And they talk about, even if he could afford a lawyer, and they brought up that the Egan decision went to Miranda and beyond. They actually provided him with more information than normally you get. And then, yes, this is a case, I've read this one before and I've come across it before, but it's not one you learn. So this is one where in Guernsey County's out in the holler, let me tell you, though. They determined whether he complied with Miranda. En route, he read the Miranda form they have. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. Okay. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice and have him with you during questioning. You have the right to the same right to advice in presence of a lawyer, even if you cannot afford to hire one. If you decide to answer questions without a lawyer, you will still have the right to stop. You also have the right to stop and talk to a lawyer at any time. So after acknowledging he understood him, he made an incriminating statement. The trial court granted the motion to suppress, saying that it had not met its heavy burden of showing Miranda warnings were met, which, I'm not going to lie, I don't know how you could fucking say that with a straight face, but, Miranda still was only 20-some years old at that point. 22 years old, 1960, what year is Miranda again? What was it? Miranda wasn't that new. I mean, it hadn't been even 30 years old at that point. So they claim that you have the same right to advice of presence of a lawyer even if you can't afford one. Doesn't show that you have a right to appointed counsel. Remember, you don't have to specifically say it. This touched all the bases required by Miranda. Right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. And the right to the advice and presence of a lawyer, even if you're not going to afford to hire one. And you have the right to stop questioning until you talk to a lawyer. There's no issue that he doesn't understand these. He's just saying it wasn't the magic words. Well, they informed him of his right to answer questions and he could have counsel present even if he couldn't afford one. Well, that's appointed counsel. That's a lawyer if you can't afford it. They therefore conclude the warnings were adequate. And they go on, and the judge keeps pointing out things here. There's Powell v. Florida, or Florida v. Powell. You have the right to remain silent, give up the right. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to the lawyer before answering your questions. If you can't afford one will be appointed for you without cost and before questioning. You have the right to use any of these rights at any time you want during the interview. So, he claims in this one, though, that his rights to convey the presence of an attorney were not done perfectly. So the trial court denied his motion. The Florida appellate court said that the warnings didn't adequately inform him. Okay, well, the Florida Supreme Court affirmed that. And then the Supreme Court began its analysis saying, that's not how this works. There's only 4 things that Miranda must do. You have the right to remain silent. And you say it can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney being present. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed. So, yeah, this is, as long as those 4 things are met, it doesn't have to be specific. It's always easier just to follow the words they wrote down. Because if you do it exactly the way they say it, then there's no question. Which I don't understand why police didn't do it that way. Especially if they talk to a lawyer who's advising them. Just do it the way the fucking Supreme Court said it. There's never any question because the Supreme Court's never going to come back and say, oh yeah, we fucked that up. They're going to stick to their guns. So, the 4 warnings are invariable, but this court has not dictated the words which the essential information must be conveyed. So that's the issue here. So they go on here and they keep going. They keep going with this. And there's so much of this here because the court's really trying to make sure, as it's explaining the Fourth Amendment issues here, that your rights, the right to remain silent, and then which transforms into a Fifth Amendment issue. And now we're also getting into a Sixth Amendment issue because your right to counsel. And there's a Fifth Amendment right to counsel, and there's a Sixth Amendment right to counsel. There's a lot of these things that start kind of coalescing and congealing, and it turns into a big fucking ball once Miranda becomes an issue. So they point out that for Powell, that the police in Florida didn't omit any information. They informed him of everything that he had. In combination, the 2 warnings reasonably conveyed him his right to have an attorney present, not only at the outset, but at all times. They point out that feds advise suspects of the full contours of each Miranda right. Now, the feds do it, they do it like they do Miranda explicitly, but they also include other things. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you questions. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. This advice is informative, but we decline to declare the precise formulation. Different words were used in this, but they communicated the same message. And that's the big thing here. So the ultimate questions are whether the Miranda warnings read to Doreman complied with the invariable warnings required by Miranda, or if not a rigid incantation of those warnings, were they fully effective at notifying him his right to silence, or 3, if not a rigid incantation of the warnings, did they touch all the bases required by Miranda, or option 4, did the words used explicitly advise him of the full contours of each Miranda right, thereby communicating the same essential message? So there's 4 separate questions. So at the beginning, approximately 38 minutes, he breaks out a small black binder or folder, sets it on the desk, he adjusts the handcuffs, and then he tells Doreman he wants to talk to him about what happened today, but I gotta read you this real quick. And I read this to everybody, all right? Was in his hand was the standard business-sized card Miranda warnings issued by the Claremont County Sheriffs. The rights card reads as follows, and here's the actual rights card. Not the actual card, obviously, but this is all the shit they have on it. So let's see what they have. Before we ask you any questions, you must understand you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions, and to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. Do you understand these rights? Are you willing to answer some questions? Between 39 minutes, basically 40 minutes on the 8 seconds, and the reading of the card, the detective advises Doreman of the rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. Doreman says, yep. And then he says, oh, you understand. Oh, good. Then Ross begins his interrogation. Now, remember here, notice there's an issue. You have the right to remain silent. Here's the top ones. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court, right? You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you. That's the 4th one. Those are the 4. Remember, we got to go back up to Miranda. What are the 4 parts? Right? Because what does Miranda say? Miranda says that you have the right to remain silent. Okay, cool. That was mentioned. Anything you say can be used against you. Yep. You have the right to an attorney being present. And if you can't afford one will be appointed for you. So let's get back down here. What did he do? So he said, you have the right to remain silent, right? He said that. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions. If you can't afford a lawyer, it won't be appointed for you. So we got the shocker. When they didn't follow the rules, chat, we got a shocker problem. There's a shocker problem because look, what's number 3 say? What's number 3 say? You have the right to talk to an attorney before we ask any questions. Not you have the right to have counsel present during your interrogation. Boop, 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 boop. On a triple fucking murder. Home slice fucking sweet dicked reading the Miranda rights. That's all you had to do. This is all you had to do was just this thing right here. That's all you had to do for this big murder, and you didn't do it. You like a fucking government worker. And I know some of you guys out there are government workers, but y'all know that's how you act. I was one at one point before too. That's how you act. County workers, man. County workers. Womp, womp, womp. So, and the court brings that up as the problem. As clearly exposed, inexplicably, he completely omitted the third and variable Miranda warning, that he has the right to have the presence of an attorney. That's kind of an uh-oh. That's a bit of a uh-oh. Uh-oh. Completely omitted that warning. He has a right to presence of an attorney. Yeah. Your pointer and middle finger is supposed to be touching, not spread apart like that. It depends on how loose the person is. Depends on how big, Yes, not good enough for government work this time, yes. So, yes, the rights card. Oh, we expect cops to read What's the World Coming to? Yes. Yes, Augustin says, I got news for you. That means you're Nick Recator. This is your reminder. Don't talk to the cops. Yes, it is. So, what's Miranda's OnlyFans? Well, Ernesto Miranda was a guy. I don't think you'd want his OnlyFans. But he was accused of raping women, so maybe you wouldn't want to watch his OnlyFans if you're into the raping stuff. So, yes, Mandy sexual. Thank you, Sean. That was beautiful. I tried. So everything said in the interrogation gets thrown in the trash bin for burning. Yeah. Yes. So, hold on here. John is saying for $5, shoving nightsticks. Did you get curious and watch the Johnny Rapid video? No, I did not. And then Brandon says for $4.99, I have a nice Ruthless winter hat. Has held up to Father Time. Unlike some. Now show us Clyde. I don't know if I can get Clyde without the other dogs coming in here, and it's going to be a mess. I'll bring you Clyde in a second. You know what? I'm holding Clyde ransom. Doggo cam. Let's go. That's what we're doing. Doggo cam. So, that's a big problem here, chat. This is a big one. Also of critical importance is the detective's failure to adopt any other fully effective... Remember, you could do any other means to notify Doreman of this right to fully advise him of his right to silence. He simply embarked upon his interrogation. Notice, he simply embarked on his interrogation. According to the court, finds that the detective did touch all the bases required by Miranda daily, and the detective here did not advise Doreman of the full contours of each Miranda right. The court finds the decision of Powell compels it to answer all 4 questions as said above in the negative. So it talks about entirely omitting any information. So they talk about all of that. So here we get to the issues. The detective did advise Doreman of the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions. He did not advise him the equal and variable right under Miranda's progeny to have the lawyer present during his interrogation. Nor did he adopt any other fully effective means to notify him of this right, such as the ones approved in Prysock, Duckworth, and Powell, and by the Ohio Supreme Court. Consequently, the court finds that he did not properly advise Doreman of the 4 invariable warnings required by Miranda, that he did not adopt fully effective means to notify Doreman of his right to silence, nor did he touch all the bases required by Miranda, and nor did he advise him of the full contours of each Miranda right, such that he communicated him during the same essential message. Accordingly, all statements obtained for Doreman are suppressed, and the state shall not be permitted to introduce any statements obtained during the interrogation in its case in chief. Now, that's not a problem for them, because remember, the daughter was there, and she didn't get killed. She's alive. And his wife is still alive. She survived. And guess what she's going to do? He fucking killed them all. I watched him do it. He tried to kill me. Like, there they are, laying on the ground. I watched him go. Just like in Reservoir Dogs. I just watched him go, bap, bap, bap. Like, so they don't necessarily need it. This is a case that they can prosecute without it, but that's a big fucking fuck up, guys. And notice the cop, less than 8 seconds belts that out. That's the problem here. And that's the thing. He kind of fumble-dicked it. That's why you don't do that. I would argue that they also didn't include you could have that appointed lawyer at your questioning. Because that's not properly done either. But this is the fatal thing. This is a big one. You can't fuck that up. And he had the card to read. And you know what? That makes me wonder. I bet this guy's not his first time doing it. That's when he flies through the card like that. Yeah, he killed 2 of them. I thought he killed all 3 of them right in front of her. 2 of them right in front of her. Okay. Brandon says she'll skip court to suck more dick, maybe. Sean's bribing us with a feet cam now. No. How many subs till the Clyde goal? Yes, he left out the right to have a lawyer present during the interrogation. Yep, he was. He did, and that was a big deal. So, kids killed, woman most affected. Ha! One boy ran. Well, no, the girl ran. The stepdaughter ran. So, yeah, it's, yeah, that's a problem. So he fucked up. So he didn't advise him of the 4 warnings. If you don't advise them, it's a failure. He didn't adopt any other means to notify him. He didn't touch all the bases. And he didn't advise him of the full contours. So, yeah. Because remember, Miranda circles around this idea, and they talk about this right to silence part. That all focuses on your right to silence and whether or not you want to speak to the police. So you have the right to talk to a lawyer before you talk to us. That's your right to remain silent before you talk to before you get an interview. Is you have the right to speak to a lawyer before you speak to the police. So, yeah, they fucked it up all 4 ways. And they talk about some of the things he's going to shoot down the state's arguments here, though. And this is really good. I like these. And this is a motion I've already saved. And I keep this. I have a thing of good motions, and this is one of the ones, and I have them labeled, and this is a good one. So the state cites U.S. v. Clayton in support of its contention that Miranda rights pass muster. Irrespective of its holdings, the court is not bound to follow it. Which is true, because the Sixth Circuit, that's in federal court. That doesn't have, there's no supremacy clause issue there. The court's not bound to follow it. And this is something the Supreme Court of Ohio said. We are bound, and I like this because it is a based argument. We are elected to abandon our role in the system of federalism created by the United States Constitution until the Supreme Court directs us otherwise. Both inferior federal courts and state courts serve as laboratories for experimentation to devise various solutions, where the best solution is far from clear. Therefore, we conclude we are not bound on rulings of federal statutory and constitutional law made by a federal court other than SCOTUS. Logically, it follows that if the Ohio Supreme Court is not bound to follow rulings on federal constitutional law, then Ohio's inferior court, such as a trial court, is likewise not bound to follow such rulings. And I like that. This is some good stuff, you guys. This is stuff that will be very helpful. I mean, these, like I said, I've got, where is it at? I gotta, hold on. Where do I have that thing saved? No, where is it? Where the fuck did I put it? God, now I gotta go back and find it. Shit. It's somewhere around here. Oh, god damn, I lost it. Now it's somewhere in my Dropbox. I gotta find it. Hold on here. Let me see. Where is it? Oh, yeah, I found it. Yep, I have it. Yep. Wow, I saved this in like 2 places. That's weird. Huh. Oh, well. Didn't anticipate that, so we'll just keep going. There's a second reason why this court doesn't give credence to Clayton. There are other decisions regarding the fact patterns that reach the opposite result. So in the Ninth Circuit, they disagreed. And the Seventh Circuit, they disagreed. They both held that in an in-custody suspect prior to initiating custodial interrogation, he has the right to have a lawyer present during the interrogation. Failure to do that runs afoul. This split in federal appellate courts regarding the warnings here is another compelling reason to wait until SCOTUS revisits Powell. Until SCOTUS rules the combination of completely omitting the right a suspect has to a lawyer present during interrogation and fails to adopt other means, does not violate it, the court's bound to follow Powell. So they get to the fourth claim, and this is different than appellate courts, because appellate courts would have stopped there. They don't keep addressing the issues because of judicial restraint. But at a trial court level, a trial court has, I would argue, the burden of still addressing all the things that were raised. So they will also turn the attention to the fourth claim that Doreman unequivocally invoked his right to counsel. So to invoke his right to counsel, it must be an unequivocal request. You must articulate your desire to have a counsel present. Sufficiently clearly, a reasonable officer in the circumstances would understand the statement to be a request. You don't examine the words words not in isolation, but in context. They talk about the case here of CPEC. CPEC was convicted of aggravated murder with capital specification sentenced to death. Pertinent here is his claim he unambiguously invoked his right to counsel during his custodial investigation. Then he acknowledged prior to being that his Miranda rights were read to him. During the interrogation, questions were asked regarding the potential presence of deceased blood being found on him. Farther along the custodial interrogation, when one detective requested to another to get his luminol light to check his hands for blood, when the detective left the room to get the luminol light, he asked about the light. After it was explained to him what it would do, that it could detect the presence of blood, he asked, well, before you use it, can I have a lawyer here? The detective said, no, I don't think we need one for that. If you didn't do anything, why do you need a lawyer? After this exchange, the interview continued for several more hours, and the luminol test was never administered. His statements were made after his requests for counsel were introduced at trial. The argument was on appeal. His question about having a lawyer present for the luminol test Was that clear enough that it revoked his previous waiver and triggered his right to counsel? The court disagreed, saying that his request for counsel, asked if he could have an attorney present. So, they point out, though, that your unambiguous request for... Sorry, I'm trying to... The unambiguous request for counsel for a limited purpose not be interpreted as a request for all purposes. So, and they point out, here an ordinary person would understand the question, well, before you use it, can I have a lawyer here? To unambiguously refer to having counsel present for the luminol test. It was not a general request for counsel. He had not asked for counsel up to that point and then asked for counsel only in context of an exchange with the detective regarding the function of the test. And the test was never administered. When no test was performed, he continued to speak to detectives without counsel and deny his involvement in the guy's death. Thus, when the request is considered in the context of the exchange, we conclude he did not unequivocally invoke his right to counsel for all purposes of the interview. So, in light of the holding, they turn to the statements Doreman made. As noted above, after the questioning, literally 5 minutes afterwards, he said, "I'll wait for a lawyer. I really don't know. Give me a couple days. I can talk to a lawyer so that way I can get some good answers." The detective then says, "I understand." To ascertain the full context of the request for counsel, the court begins its inquiry when he was being escorted from the immediate crime scene to the cruiser. Walking along, he asked Rudd to get his wallet out of his back pocket, and the deputy says, "Shut up, dude. You have the right to remain silent. Fucking use it." Seconds later, he says, "Yes, sir." The body-worn camera is also running a military time, reflects he was secured in the cruiser about 4:30. So he was then transferred to the sheriff's office into the interview room. 4A shows Ross engaged in the recording device at about 5:51 and enters the room shortly thereafter. For perhaps 2 minutes, Doreman sits alone in the interview room. He makes no statements of any nature. A deputy then enters the room and remains until Ross re-enters the room at 38 minutes. During the 30 minutes so Doreman was in the interview room, neither he nor the deputy guarding him asked him any questions, and he didn't make any spontaneous statements. Now, that's the thing. If Doreman on his own started talking, those are spontaneous statements. On his own, he's like, "Yes, I did it!" Okay, well, that's not suppressible, given the context. As noted, he starts a questioning 40 minutes in. At 45 minutes in, Doreman requests a lawyer. During this time period, Ross asked a number of questions, most of which were not about the events of the day, but questions about a prior contact between the 2 years past and how he was feeling at the time. Doreman responded to some questions, but remained silent after some. At one point, when Doreman was not responding to questions, Ross asked him if he was thinking and if he was all right. Doreman did not respond. And then at 42 minutes, right before he invokes his attorney, he asked him, "Why don't we do this? Why don't you tell me what's happening, what happened today?" At 42 minutes, Doreman responds. Over the next 20 seconds or so, he responds to additional questions posed to him. Between 43 and 44 minutes, Ross changes gears and asks him when he last ate, slept, if he's thirsty or hungry. Doreman would answer some of these questions and not respond to others. Now remember, this is all tainted still, because this is all after he fucked up Miranda. Remember, he had 8 seconds, he belted through all of it. At 44 seconds, he says, "What happened to your family?" No answer. "Somebody make you upset?" There's a response, but it's unclear what he says. At 44 minutes, he poses about 5 questions about the day's events. Over the following seconds, Doreman answers some questions, but not the others. Finally, at 45:43, Ross asked Doreman if Doreman was saying he just lost his way, and without hesitation and almost interrupting him, Doreman states, "I'll wait for a lawyer. I really don't know. Give me a couple days. I could talk to a lawyer and have nice answers." At that point, Ross says, "I understand." And then he asks him, "Do you have a lawyer?" That's not a violation of Miranda, because do you have somebody? Because I can contact them. But you already had an attorney on retainer. Or, for example, if I'm already representing you and you get picked up, that happens. Or, Because I've had this happen before when I get appointed to somebody. When you get appointed to represent somebody, you give them all your information anyway. I give them my card. And I've had clients before where it's like, yeah, hey, this is the detective so-and-so. I'm at like the Cleveland Heights Police Department. We picked up this guy. He says you're his attorney. What are we doing with that? There's times you have to address those matters. From his apprehension at the scene, his placement in the cruiser, and during his transport to the office, Doreman remained silent for over 1 hour while in police custody. He asked no questions, and he did not make any statements during the period. Then, while in the interim for nearly 40 minutes before Ross began his interrogation, he asked no questions and made no statements. That's really fucking hard to do, believe it or not, because most people fucking talk. So, good on him. The court could best describe the interview process as one trying to pull teeth. Doreman would at times sit in total silence and not look at Ross or answer his questions. At other times, he would hesitate for a few seconds before responding. His conduct and demeanor at the time is that of a person either unwilling to talk to officers or exceedingly hesitant. In CPIC, the court found that an ordinary person would understand the following question. Well, before I use it, can I have a lawyer here? To unambiguously refer to having counsel present for the light test. The first clause of Doreman's statement, I'll just wait for a lawyer, is not a question, but a declaration he wants for a lawyer. It's not the best way to, I will say this, that is not the best way to say you want a lawyer. I'll wait for a lawyer. No. I want my lawyer here. I want one here. Get me an attorney. This is, I'd argue, this is kind of like, if we're talking about what's good, why do we still fucking have these on? I will say this much, chat. It's good, it works, but I would not hang your hat on that. That's I'd argue that's still kind of, I don't feel comfortable with that one. I would never recommend saying, oh, I'll just wait for my lawyer. No, just say, like, I want my lawyer here. I won't talk till my lawyer gets here. I won't talk till I consult with someone. Those are clear. This is, like, I don't, but yes, it's not a question, but a declaration he wants a lawyer. Ow, you get like earwax, it won't come out. Jeez, I can feel it, but it hurts. When I try to, Chad, I may have to end this early. You might have sinus problems. The court believes that an ordinary person would understand this declaration unambiguously refers to having counsel present. The second clause, I really don't know, could be considered ambiguous. Does it mean he really didn't know if he would wait for a lawyer, or he doesn't know if he had lost his way? The last statement from Ross before the statement was made? Taken in isolation, if Doreman had stopped talking at that point, it's possible that an ordinary person might not understand the first two clauses unambiguously referring to having a lawyer present and lead to a finding that he didn't invoke his right to counsel. But Doreman didn't stop. He said, give me a couple days, I can talk to a lawyer to get good, nice answers. That convinces the court an ordinary person would understand these declarations unambiguously refer to having a lawyer present, and coupled with his statement, I'll wait for a lawyer, leads this court to conclude that Doreman unequivocally invoked his right to counsel. This conclusion is bolstered by the police's understanding of it. I understand what you're saying. Is there a lawyer I can go contact for you? So, this is great. Now the cops can't. Well, remember the lawyer dog case, which I fucking hate, out of Louisiana. I want a lawyer dog. Does that mean he want a dog passing the bar? I'm just some retarded judge in Louisiana. I just don't know what that means, boss. Well, here the police even said, yeah, I think he wants a lawyer. Oh, okay, I guess you do. So, the court finds he invoked his right to counsel and that the detective was required to stop questioning him immediately. And no evidence resulting thereafter can be used against him. So, bam! 2 ways they fucked it up. Because remember, it says 40 minutes, and we're still in part A. And still like the part 1 of these videos. But they went on for hours talking to him. He says, I want a lawyer, and they kept going. So they fucked up the right, and you can almost argue, like, he basically said, I want a lawyer here with me. And he's like, well, to be fair, this detective's like, well, that's not on my card, so you ain't entitled to that right, son. But yeah, boom, second violation of the Constitution. The second technicality. So the two interviews relating to the inmate's medical and mental health, they're addressing at the same time. They're similar in the following manner. The time each professional was in a cell was under 2 minutes. Neither of them asked questions that could easily be construed as with an intent to elicit incriminating statements. Also, they can only, anything they ask you that's medically protected. If you volunteer information that's not of a nature regarding your treatment, like if the doctor's sitting there and you're like, I've got a big cut on my arm. Oh, by the way, I fucking killed them all. Well, telling them you killed them all has no bearing on the medical treatment. So, you've got a fine line to follow. The product print, the status skint. Yes. That's why you should say comma. Yes. Well, I'm not a cat. He announced no show tonight due to lower energy and having to amp things up on the show. What do you mean amping things up? Go get a bump, dude. If you take a bump if you need to amp things up. Let's go, son. So, judges are pretty dumb here in Louisiana. Yeah, they are. There's nothing, it's the Airbud rules. There's nothing in the rules that say dog can't be a lawyer. Oh. Sean, J-Rock saying this guy is most likely going through a psychotic break during interrogation. Oh, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he went through a psychotic break when he started shooting his kids in the head, but what do I know? Yeah. Where did Doreman work? I don't know where he worked. He worked at the door factory. I don't know. Yeah, Spires, the Marlin HC is a semi-auto rifle. It is. Oh, unless you're saying, oh, never mind. I'm not going to say it. I don't know Napoleonic Code and the intricacies of canine representation. Well, yes. We can give Clyde a law degree now. Yeah, Clyde could have one. Yeah, just take some poppers. I mean, well, bump that coke or bump some meth, dude. Jeez. It's not hard to get fired up. It's a cheerleader. Isn't that part of his thing? Like, get fired up. Like, however they do it. He should have followed the cop's first advice and shut the fuck up. Well, he pretty much did. But you also have the right to invoke your attorney at any time you want. Both perform their we go on though. Both perform their respective obligations in a common professional manner. Neither engaged in any conduct that would be considered threatening or coercive. They treated him respectfully. In fact, Miss Butcher told him that she was there to check on him, see if he's doing okay. I'm not there to judge him or make judgments. Just there to take care of him. Miss Griffin asked a few questions to ascertain the nature of his symptoms. She is heard advising his heart rate was good at 83. Well, if he's just sitting there and has a pulse of 83, that's not good. I mean, I'm a fat guy, and even my pulse, a pulse of 83 is not good. He had no temperature. Well, thank God. You never. The judge could be like, "Oh, we got temperature 107. He's fine. I know he's fine." His blood pressure was normal. Her follow-up questions were minimal and asked for any history of the symptoms that prompted his call. While the defense asserts statutory violations compelling the suppression of the statements, they gloss over the impact Doreman's incarceration in the county jails had on the various rights he claimed were violated. The court addressed the issues in Hudson v. Palmer, the right of a privacy a prison inmate may be entitled within the confines. Well, you don't really have that much. The concept of incarceration and the needs and objectives of penal institutions are not subject to the recognition of privacy for prisoners and can't be reconciled. They're just too bad, so sad. So, the administration of a prison is at best an extraordinarily difficult undertaking that people can't even do competently. So, unfettered access to these cells by prison officials, it's imperative drugs and contraband are be fettered out, and sanitary surroundings are maintained. It would be impossible to accomplish prison objectives if there was a right to privacy. Which, we strike the balance in favor of institutional security, which we've noted is central to all corrections goals. Which prisons even fuck that up. So while the medical interviews were certainly not searches of his cell, the principals stated support the holding the Fourth Amendment does not apply within the confines of his cell, nevertheless carries significant weight in resolving the issues here. A county jail is mandatorily to provide medical services to all inmates, which they don't really, in Ohio, they don't do that well. Some are really fucking good, but most aren't. Medical care of a non-elective nature cannot be postponed until after the period of incarceration of a person confined in a jail. And even then, when it's stuff they really fucking need, it's really hard to get them out. Just saying, it is really fucking hard. And they talk about all the things that the essential health, an inmate pre-screening. So they talk about suicide thoughts, current serious potential injuries, the essential receiving screen. Trained personnel in accordance with protocols shall perform a written medical, dental, and mental health receiving screening on each inmate upon arrival. They talk about, your current past illnesses, your current medical problems, current medications, hospitalizations, use of drugs and alcohol, including your frequency, suicidal risk assessments, behavior, your consciousness, your mental health status. The disposition when you go to general population, where you're getting referred from medical health services, emergency treatment, observation, mental health observation. The jail provides 24-hour emergency medical, dental, mental health care services. That one's a big LOL. I mean, really. I'll just tell you that. That's a lol. That doesn't happen. Yes, there's a daily procedure where you have an opportunity to report health and medical issues. Okay. But that's about it. These are just a few of the standards required to be as a fully accredited jails. So, the interaction with Doreman in his cell was necessary to comply with the mental health standards required above. The same applies when the nurse came in. Clearly, both were following state-mandated standards the county jail did and must follow to address his immediate mental health upon placement in the jail and respond to his self-initiated medical emergency. When he says, oh, I'm having chest pain, they're making sure are you having a heart attack or is it just you going crazy? So now it becomes, do these infringe upon his constitutional rights? And I think they're going to try to argue he seemed fine, and the medical counselor is going to say, he seemed okay to me, he said he wasn't suffering. And that's probably what they're going to do with those two. So, in Washington v. Harper, a mentally ill man challenged the constitutionality of a state regulation that permitted the administration of antipsychotic medications against his will. So, any constitutional right he must be defined in the context of the inmate's confinement. Well, he was in a mental hospital, so it's going to be different there. So, to determine if a standard is reasonable, courts must determine deference to the professional judgment of prison administrators, who bear significant responsibility for defining legitimate goals of corrections and determining the most appropriate means to accomplish them. So it's not on the state to prove the validity of the prison regulations, but on the prisoner to disprove them. So they'll address the caseworker interview first, then the nurse exam. The reasonableness. So the standards relative to the caseworker interview do have a valid and rational connection to legitimate governmental interest to justify it. She said it's her responsibility to address the mental health concerns of newly admitted inmates. She determines that to determine the proper placement in the jail, in general population, or in isolation due to the seriousness of their mental health issues. The reasonableness of the standards is also important to assess the immediate mental health condition, ascertain if immediate mental health care is needed. And it's in his best interest for the jail staff and other inmates from a safety perspective. Not immediately assessing him could result in his own self being injured, or the other inmates being injured, or jail staff being injured. Or the other inmates injuring him. They might fight him. Who knows? Institutional safety is paramount in a jail setting. Well, they don't do a good job of enforcing it. To delay immediate health assessment, to advise the inmate of his Miranda rights and accommodate a request for counsel is not reasonable. Such a delay could result in a deterioration of conditions, thereby putting everyone at risk. And finally, what is the alternative? To sit idly by and hope the inmate doesn't cause injury to himself or others until his right to counsel is honored? So, they point out she complied by conducting her intrusion minimally of his privacy. So, his responses to her questions will not be suppressed. And like I said, I'm assuming, do you feel like you're suffering from schizophrenia, paranoia, or do you hear voices? Do you feel like you have a split personality? She probably asked him a bunch of questions, and he's like, no, 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 no. Do you feel like you're harmed to anybody, yourself or anyone else? No. Are you having any issues? Are you hallucinating? All of that. He's going to say, and probably says no, 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 no on the things she checked off. The same analysis is the same thing for the nurse. Again, he invited this contact complaining of chest pains, and they're providing medical care, so they talked to him. No one could reasonably argue there is a ready alternative to providing emergency medical treatment to an inmate. Yes, I'm dying, help me, but first I want my attorney here. Ugh! So they get through all of this. For the sake of the argument that these were de facto sheriff's deputies, let's say pretending they were during their encounters, it's wholly unreasonable to suggest that they should have known their mental health questions and medical questions would be reasonably likely to elicit an incriminating statement, which their recorded interview unequivocally shows they did not. Finally, the defense claims that the two interviews violate certain state federal statutes, and thus any defendant should be suppressed or are without merit. As the court has determined these were constitutionally permissible, suppression is not warranted. So, with that, the court finds the following. The Miranda rights were violated because Ross failed to properly advise the Doreman of them prior to initiating the interrogation, and all statements shall be suppressed, and the state shall not adduce any of the statements in their case in chief. Notice that means they could, depending on what happens, let's say he takes a stand and says something, well, that might be introduced on rebuttal because he brought it up. The defendant's Miranda rights were violated when, after he had unequivocally and ambiguously invoked his right to counsel. Okay. Therefore, irrespective of the failure to properly and advise Doreman's Miranda rights, all statements obtained during it shall be suppressed, and the state shall not adduce any of these in their case in chief. So even if this had actually turned out to be good, this is still bad. Like I said, they fucked up twice. The defendant's Miranda rights were not violated due to the detective's failure to have a form, so it doesn't count. Rights were not violated due to a written copy of the form. Nope, doesn't matter. The statements obtained as a result of the statements obtained by the detectives resulting interrogation, irrespective of the violations of Miranda set forth above, were nevertheless voluntary and were not the product of any coercive conduct during any time of the apprehension. So, they were not coercive, but it doesn't matter because Miranda was still violated. Twice. And the butcher interview, the caseworker interview, and nurse interview were constitutionally permissible, and none of the statements obtained by Doreman shall be suppressed. So these ones are still coming in as well. So the motion to suppress and limine is granted in part, and all statements obtained during the custodial interrogation shall be suppressed, and they cannot introduce States Exhibit 4A and 4B, the video recording of the interrogation, or in any other way adduce these statements in their case in chief. So, and then the motion to suppress is otherwise denied for the reasons said above in paragraphs 3, 4, 5, and 6. So, yeah, there we go. Now, this is how it goes out, and that's it. So he's registered to vote at that address in 2017. Poor Miranda. So actually, hold on here. 83 is not that bad. Leans to a person being out of shape, but not bad. Yeah, I guess, but what are you asking? Hold on here. Norway has very nice prisons. Yeah, Anders Breivik is in prison. He's doing pretty good. The range for healthy adults between 55 and 85. Geez, like mine's still good. My pulse was like in the 70s. Last time I was at the doctor. So there you go. So he should have had a fucking temperature, yeah. So what are you guys asking here? What are you talking about, JNOV? Yes, in Ohio, that can happen. Yes, the only thing that can't be set aside is a not guilty verdict in a criminal case. Yes. So, can the state appeal this? I read the order with that extra gay flair tonight. Yes, I did. Hold on, I need to go find a guy to come over so I can go like this and totally not be gay about it. Yes. Antoinette Kilpatrick. Partially correct, partially not correct. So, Ernesto Miranda, after the case of Miranda v. Arizona came out, his case got dismissed. And Miranda he ended up going to prison later for some things. He made a career out of making money signing and autographing Miranda warning cards that police could get. And he would autograph them for a couple of bucks here and there because he was a broke piece of shit. Eventually, he was stabbed to death in a bar. His killer was apprehended. They apprehended somebody, and he asserted his Miranda rights. He asserted his right to remain silent. So, yeah. So, isn't it ironic? So, that's what happened to Miranda's killer. Now, remember, Ernesto Miranda had a history of, like, raping women, so this wasn't a nice guy. Wasn't a nice guy, so just saying. Now, this is, like I said, guys, I thought this one was really interesting because Chad Doreman's case is probably going to trial. They've got enough evidence otherwise, I would assume, because they probably do have the wife saying, I watched him, boop, 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 to the kids. The other kid's going to say, yeah, he tried to do me up too. But it's so interesting how the police fucked this up. The cop's like, but he read his card. He didn't even, took him 8 seconds. And it's 2023. And then the guy says, I want a lawyer. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. But if I go talk to one, he can just help me straighten out. Yeah, he went back to jail for parole violation. The dude that handed the knife, the killer, was arrested and invoked karma. Okay, yeah, but yes, the people involved invoked their Miranda rights. So it was like, isn't it ironic? They fucked up the easiest thing, yes. They fucked it up 2 separate ways. Not only did you kind of fuck it up, but you went and fucked it up 2 separate ways. Yes, the cops fucked up. They literally do it every day. I understand, and that's the thing. Here's, like I said, guys, when you go to McDonald's and they fuck up your cheeseburger, okay, yeah, they fuck up. We all fuck up in our jobs. You don't put a cover sheet on your TPS report. Whatever it is, you might fuck up. You put extra pickles on the burger and the guy wants no pickles. Oops. You're piloting a freighter through a channel and you fucking hit the bridge. You're flying an airplane and you crash. You're flying the space shuttle. Like, the scale of, everybody has accidents. Everybody oopsie poopsies. But it's just what that oopsie poopsie becomes. It's a scale of, relativity, depending on how important your job is. The cops fuck up. A murderer's confession gets suppressed. Now, it doesn't sound like he's going to walk free, but that could have been the result. Let's say he killed them all. And there were no survivors. Let's say there were no survivors, and he killed the whole fucking family and nobody knew about it. What happens then? You're going to have to rely on forensic evidence and other evidence to show he did it. And if he didn't admit it to anybody, you're kind of fucked. Because if he didn't make the phone call to 911, well, who did it? I don't know. Something to think about. Something to think about. So, 7 Screaming Dizbuster says a cop fucking up is like a pilot fucking up. Yeah, it is. It is. But that's how it goes. They messed up. And I wanted to show you guys this because isn't it interesting how bad they messed up? I told you guys it was this one was interesting. Because it wasn't as straightforward as they were beating the fuck out of him with the phone book. But they really fucked up these things. And I think this case is going to go forward. And it's going to be very interesting. I get it. It's here in Ohio. But, I mean, when this happened last year, it was all over the place. And, yeah, I'm going to cover it, but there wasn't anything to cover at the time. Now there's some stuff to cover, and it's going to be a battle. This guy's going to go to trial for his not guilty by reason of insanity. And I hope to God it's televised because I'm going to love covering every bit of it. Funny Bit says, yeah, you come inside a chick. Oops. Amon Rezu says, those were all real specific events. Yeah, I forget where it was. I think it was in D.C. The guy said, like, if you put pickles on my burger, I'll kill all of you. They put pickles on his burger, and he came back later with a gun, and he fucking killed people. So, yeah, sewing up that appendectomy, can't find the clamps. Oops. Yeah, you're counting out sponges, and you're missing one. Oops. Karam says, it was a racist bridge. I know it was a white bridge. Let me see here. Where's the... Somebody asked it earlier. I'm trying to make sure I... 80 says the 7th Amendment only applied to civil court. Yeah. I mean, that's... oh, here, 80's thing. Yeah. I mean, yes, 7th Amendment. I mean, yeah, here... I mean... Yeah, it's... Yeah, I mean, the 7th Amendment is very, very straightforward. I mean, here is... I mean, here's the 7th Amendment in its full entirety. I mean, here it is. Here's the 7th Amendment. It's like Rocky VII, Adrian's Revenge, as Bart Simpson says. You know, in suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. Notice this was written in 1787, and then ratified in 1791. You know, yes, $20 is a lot of money back then. $20 in 1791 was like a ton of fucking money. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So yes, that only covers civil things. In fact, there's actually a book out there. I forget who wrote it, but they talk about the 7th Amendment is actually relatively getting killed off. I gotta try it if I can remember. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes, it is a very it's like the Third Amendment. It's heavily neglected. So that's actually, thank you for asking the question, though. It's a very good question. AD says, is there enough evidence for insanity defense? Don't know. I mean, he fucking shot out, almost killed his whole family. That depends on what his psychiatric reviews come through. So his counsel this week filed a NGRI, not guilty by reason of insanity. So he will be reviewed, and there will be a determination delivered to the court no later than the end of April. That might get stretched out, though, because sometimes it's hard to get a psychiatric review done because he's going to be reviewed by a psychologist. They'll sit down with him, they'll interview him, they'll produce a report, They'll give him some things to fill out. They'll have him do some like basic testing on things, and we'll tell the court we think he's sane or not sane. There's probably not an issue of competency, but it's the issue of at the time of this occurring, was he insane? Okay. And then there'll probably be a second opinion, because even if it comes back, he's fucking crazier than Charlie Manson. And the psychiatrist is like, oh my God, he's the craziest fucking person ever walked the earth. You know, his insanity level is over 9,000, Judge. The prosecutor's going to say, I want a second opinion. And they'll find a shrink to interview him. And maybe that shrink says, yeah, you know what? His insanity level is 1, meaning it's normal. Okay, well, now we've got an issue. And depending, the courts say, well, it's not clear, so I can't determine it. We're going to have to go to trial. And they'll bring in, it'll be a battle of dueling opinions. And it'll be the one doctor's like, you know, he's crazy. The other one's saying, nah, he's cool. He knew what he did. Or you might get both of them say, yeah, he's fine. Or they might say, yeah, he's fucking crazy. They might agree for different reasons. They also might say, yeah, he's malingering, which I've had multiple clients do that. I think they're crazy, or I think they have a concern they are, but it comes back and they're like, yeah, and I mentioned this before, they're like, you read it and you see the word malingering, it's like, that's never good, because now that's something like your guy faked being crazy. And it happens enough. So he might. I don't know. We don't know yet. But I think that's also where the state would be able to bring in the mental health lady, the caseworker. It's like, when he talked to you, did he... Because I'm sure she asked, like, do you have suicidal ideations? No. Do you have homicidal ideations right now? No. Do you hear voices? No. Do you feel like you're detached from reality? She probably asked him a couple questions. Is there anything you need to know? Is there anything we need to talk about? I'm here. Can I talk to you? I can sit here and talk to you. Do you want to talk to me? I'm not with the police. She probably said all those things real quick, and he's like, no, I'm good. And then they talked to the nurse. Nurse is like, did he seem like he was suffering from mental health issues? No. Did he seem like he was lucid and could carry on a conversation? Yeah. Did he seem insane to you? No. And that's probably what they're going to be brought in for, to prove that he did not show any issues of insanity, and that happened on that day. So if they all happened right then and there versus like a year later, that's their closest gauge to determining whether or not he was insane. He doesn't seem insane at that moment. When he's talking to the cops and he's laying on the ground, all those statements he's trying to call his dog, he's like, yeah, if you talk to my dog, he's not going to bite you. Just don't grab at him. But if you go over to him and you yell for him, he'll come over to you and you take him. All that stuff sounds like a fairly reasonable man. And that's what the prosecutor's going to argue. So, yeah, there's a lot there that says he's crazy because he did it. But there's also a lot there that says he's not. And it's going to probably come down to trial. I think the wife watched him spray down the kids. Yeah. Yep. Water in the grass. He took that a little too seriously. What makes the grass grow? Blood, blood, blood. You have tons of incriminating evidence against you and your dad on a laptop, and you bring to a mom and pop for repairs and forget about it. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Oh, Patty says today's called Spy Wednesday. Okay, that's because Judas was a spy. So, yes, Alex Jones and Rabbi Shmuley had a debate today. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm sure that's going to be good to watch later. Wait, there's a Fannie hearing tomorrow? Yeah, and I don't recall what it's all about. I think it's about a motion to dismiss. There's some more things that have been filed. Ultimately, Harrison Floyd and some of the other people have been given the right to appeal some of their stuff interlocutorily wise up as well. So there's a couple things to cover there. AD says NGRI is not a get out of jail free card, right? They get committed to a mental hospital. Yep. You're committed roughly for the same amount of time because they got to keep track of you. So, and if he gets committed for aggravated murder, that's life without parole. You know, or 25 to life. He's going to be gone forever. It's not like he's going to get a not guilty. So, the Nazis love Schmooly. Oh. Tilly says Gettysburg does have some very green grass. Yes, it does. And if Ashley's on camera, I'm there. Jeez. Yeah, and you're right. It's where is mental hospitals are worse than prisons? Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, even if you win that, that's a hell unto itself. But if that's where he needs to be, that's where he needs to be, and I don't know if that's where he needs to be. So yes, Gettysburg is very haunted. Yes. What does the interlocutory appeals mean? Well, there's an INTER, but otherwise that's, locutory appeals. So interlocutory means that you put everything on pause and you're appealing up to an appellate court, kind of like what Nick's doing. The case is not over yet, but you're appealing in the middle of the case. Normally when you do an interlocutory appeal, everything's on pause until the appeal is heard and then done with. So, in the case of the Georgia defendants in the RICO case, yes, these guys are being allowed to appeal something, but Judge McAfee's still addressing all the matters that are in front of the court. Why? Because it's literally, even though this case has been going on since August, literally nothing's happened. It's very pre-trial still, very little in the pre-trial stage. Addressing all these, there's been a gajillion motions filed, and there's nothing wrong with him addressing these motions now. Well, the courts are handling what they're going to handle, because if they say no, it's like, oh, well, but in the meantime, he's making use of the time. So, normally, though, if you, like, for example, a lot of these search and seizure cases, like one of the big ones is Gatesville, Illinois, in regards to the issue of a search warrant. In Gates, he lost the suppression hearing. So immediately they appealed it up. And then that went up, and that went up, and that went up, and that went up to the Supreme Court, and then it came back down, the ruling. At times, that's how those cases shake out. Some of them only shake out afterwards, and they preserve the issue for appeal. Some of them, it's an interlocutory appeal, goes up, so these cases have been taken for fucking ever and a day to get done. Normally, that's not the case as much anymore, but yeah, you do get interlocutory appeals from time to time. Look up the red heifer for Tuesday. That doesn't help me at all. Just tell me what it is. AD says, what is a motion for a bill of particulars? The bill of particulars is, so an indictment, Rabbi Buttplug is the red heifer, okay. So, a indictment, let me see if I can bring this one up. So, the indictment just says, here's what you're being accused of doing in rough terms. Let's see here. So if that helps. So this is the indictment, okay? So the indictment says that on or about June 15th, 2023, in Claremont County, with purpose of prior calculation, he did cause the death of blank in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.01a, aggravated murder and unclassified felony. So this right here is actually what the state of Ohio is accusing Chad Doreman of doing. And I'll just use him since we're already looking at it. So this is the actual thing. That's all they have to prove, that happened. Those are the elements of the offense. All this other stuff down here, let's say they didn't find. Let's pretend this all doesn't exist. Okay? It's all gone. It's all been deleted, okay? Because this could be charged that way. Be really fucking goofy, but they could do it. A bill of particulars is where you go to the prosecutor and say, okay, I get that. I get what you're accusing him of. Makes sense. I understand. But you need to lay out a little bit more with some specificity what actually has happened. Now, what does that turn into? Well, you don't need them to say, like, well, first he grabbed the gun, and then he walked down the hall, and then he grabbed the ammunition, and then he loaded the gun. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it gives you the idea of what they exactly can prove. Because, yes, they can prove the basic idea of what happened with the indictment. Like, okay, I get it. You're claiming he fucking killed somebody. Like, I get that. You're claiming he killed his kid. And he did a prior calculation. But how do you intend to show the prior calculation? You know, give me some specificity. Give me some detail on what happened there. Now, it doesn't have to be like I said, a complete step-by-step. But I just had the murder case I was doing. I had to file for a bill of particulars because I was in a situation where my guy didn't drive. It's like he was in a car. And we had issues. Like, you know, like, so here's some of my problems for this case, this murder case I just had. Guy's in a car. 4 of the people. He's not the driver. He's not the front seat passenger. He's in the back seat with his friend. The car stops. Guy A and Guy B go into the meth house. While that's all going on, his friend that was in the back seat with him hops up into the front seat. And about 30 seconds after that all happens, boom, boom, boom. And the guy that was on the front seat of the car comes running out with a gun, hops in the car and says, go, 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 and they take off. The other guy, who happened to be the driver initially, runs off into the night. So later on, as they're driving down the road, they drive for like 20 minutes, and the guy with the gun, who did all the shooting, throws a gun out the window. My guy wasn't the driver. He wasn't the passenger, the front seat passenger. He didn't drive the getaway, because he didn't drive there or leave the scene. He didn't shoot the gun. He didn't go in the drug house. On top of that, he didn't plan it. He didn't know where the fuck it was. He didn't know the people who got shot. He didn't secure the weapon. He didn't like say, I could hook you up with somebody who's got a gun. He didn't give the weapon to the guy to go do it. And he didn't give them any money to go buy drugs. He was just going to get high because his friend wanted him to come along. So I had to ask the prosecutor, like, tell me what the fuck happened. You charge my guy with aggravated murder. Cool. I understand you charged him. But that I had to write a bill of particulars saying, explain to me how the fuck he's guilty of aggravated murder. How do you prove that? Because right now, like, they did phone dumps. Like, they eventually caught everybody. And they did phone dumps. There's nothing on my guy's phone talking about pulling a lick, planning a hit, anything like that, man. You got to go get some iron. Like, nothing to anybody at any point in time about a robbery, about a murder, nothing at all. So, like, my guy's asking me, he's like, why are they charging me with this? And I had to tell him, it's because you're in the car and they don't, like, ultimately, they don't believe you. They think you did something. Like, yes, you went and talked to them when you initially got arrested. Sure. They don't believe you fully. Oh, I mean, like, that was really the answer. Prosecutor didn't fully believe his story. Okay, cool. Tell me how you think you can show it. No, there's no conspiracy, nothing. We had, like, literally, I point that out in multiple. Prosecutor needs a conviction. Okay, to be fair, when they initially caught these guys, you see this thing a million fucking times. They all did it. And there was one party who claimed that he was there, but she was trying to keep her boyfriend out of trouble on a separate gun charge. So her testimony wasn't very credible. But it didn't, I mean, like, when you hear this story a million times over, normally what's the case? Oh, they were all fucking in on it. Like, 99 times out of 100, they're all working on it together. He truly was, like, guilty of just wanting to go get high. So I had to put together this bill of particulars, like, tell me what the fuck happened, because I don't fucking know. Like, okay, maybe you want to convict him of obstructing justice because he kind of fucked around with the cops in his interview. Okay, maybe. Maybe you want to try to get him for evidence tampering, allegedly, because there was a little sidebar event that was a little sussy involving my guy. But it wasn't that big a deal. and I could disprove it. And I was able to, like talking to his family and his friends. Remember, I don't have a private investigator yet on this one. This was when I got, there's a point. The guy's a meth addict. Like, he doesn't have money for a murder. So this is the case I got appointed on. We're running it. And I have to go out there and, you're your own fucking investigator, man. Like, I'm running down leads and information. I found information. Like, I was able to give the cops the chain of custody for the murder weapon from talking to the people I knew and that are in my guy's sphere of people. Because they inadvertently realized they ran into the guy that had the murder weapon because the guy came around wanting to sell a gun after the murder. Well, it turns out that was the gun. So I was able to give the police, like, here you go. I figured out the chain of custody on that. So my guy had a tangential issue with that, but even then it was just like shitty timing, shitty luck. So you're saying so, but I had to say, like, okay, I get, like, okay, maybe some evidence tampering he's guilty of, maybe obstructing. Okay, yeah, sure, fine, I get those two. But you charge him with fucking murder and aggravated murder and felonious assault because a lady got plugged and a dude got shot in the leg. Like, he didn't. How did he do any of that? Because there's no complicity argument. He wasn't an accomplice. He wasn't a conspirator. And we ended up striking a fucking smoking hot deal for him. Like, I might be able to get him probation out of this. Granted, he did a lot of dumb fucking things. But the worst he's looking at is like 5 years in prison, a worst case scenario. But, that's the shit he did. He's, we're copping out to the things he actually did. But more importantly, I mean, he was cooperative and did what he had to do. When I was able to work with him and his family and his friends, and we provided a lot of evidence to the state they did not have before. So, I mean, we might walk out of there with some pretty good, and he's already been in for a year now, waiting. Like, he might walk out of here in pretty good shape. So, yeah, it's not, it lets me attack it. Well, they have to give me their game plan, roughly, of what they're basically going to do and how they're going to prove it. And it allows me to kind of challenge it and attack it because now I know now I know how they're going to prove it. They don't have to say, like, this specific exhibit is going to prove this because they don't have to do it that way. And if they're not 100%, like, because there's no, like, that would be impossible. But it helps me figure out what's going on. And I was able, like, the prosecutor sat there and went through it, and she's like, yeah, I guess what, you're kind of right, ultimately. This is going to be kind of shaky. And we were able to get a really good fucking resolution on it. Do I think we could have gone to trial? Yeah. Will we have beaten the aggravated murder charge? He probably had as good a case as anybody could have, short of I wasn't fucking there. And I have proof that I wasn't there. Short of that, yeah, we had a really, really good case. But the problem is we still would have been convicted of probably evidence tampering and still convicted of obstructing justice. And ultimately, is it worth risking? Because if you go to trial on an aggravated murder and you lose, you're going away all day and all night. You're going in the back, man. You're going away for life. Or maybe, if you're lucky, 25 years to life. But that means a minimum 25 years you're eligible for parole. So you generally don't get parole in your first swing as a murder, as a convicted of murder in Ohio. So it's probably like almost 30, 35 years before you get out. Maybe you don't ever get out. Are you willing to risk that? Versus like, hey, we're arguing sentencing on 2 low-level felonies. The state is going to be asking for 5 years. We are asking for it. We're asking for whatever we want. We're not even stipulating a sentence. Like, I don't know how you don't take those odds. How you don't take that. Nolan saying, I don't think guilt of association after the fact is a crime in most states. Well, it's not guilt by association. It's the issue of you're in the car. They're going to consider you as an accomplice. And they draw. Think about it. Most of the time, what happens when people are in a car and something like that goes down? They're likely all in on it, usually. I mean, it's not necessarily guilt. Guilt by association is how they draw their conclusions. It's not an actual crime. But you're considered an accomplice. Or a co-conspirator. So am I Perry Mason? No, and I'm farthest thing from it. I'm not Quincy either, no. It's in insufficient details? Yeah, it can be. J-Rock is saying my client will be a state's witness. It depends. If the people who did the actual thing, if they don't plead, yeah, he'll have to be a state's witness. That's going to be part of it. But, I mean, he's going to say, yeah, they left the car and I heard gunshots and they came back. He doesn't know anything about them shooting them. He's just like, these two dudes left the car and then they came running back, and I later learned, after where they did their shooting, people died. So, yeah. Wait, is this ongoing? Yeah. Sounds like he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Pretty much, he was. He's guilty of being a drug addict, but that's the problem with addiction. Addiction causes you to be in bad place. Addiction causes you to go do stupid things at stupid places with stupid people. You're wanting to satisfy your itch, so you go get in a car with your friend and two other dudes you don't really know. And then all of a sudden they go in, oh, we're going to buy some drugs, and one of them you don't know that he's got a gun in his waistband. So they go walk in the middle of the night to go buy some meth, and those people don't have it. Well, it turns out they had planned a robbery the whole time. And at some point, that dude pulls out his gun, fucking zaps a lady, and shoots another guy in the leg. And now you're fucked. So yes, that's one of the problems with addiction. You get into these bad situations. So Sean's client is now the DA's client. Kind of. It took a long fucking time for me to get where I needed to be on this. I will say, they weren't unreasonable, but we were playing fucking. There was a lot of work involved in that. Holy shit. So how long between parole hearings? A couple years. My client's white. The funny thing is, one of the co-defendants is a black guy. So, black people do meth too. D.A. Vell says, you can see me hustling in the hood for detective work. The funny thing is, I have, when I go out, like, I've gone out and tried to run down leads before on things for my client or people they know, or some evidence. You try to go back and question people. And you see, like, a fat guy and a fat guy walking up and, holding a little black leather, like, manila, like a portfolio. What do most people, like, well, now that I'm really fat, it's not, they don't think I'm a cop anymore. But you know how many times people thought I was a fucking cop when I was skinnier? All the fucking time. And I'd be like, and the first time it happened to me, I said, do I look like a fucking cop to you? And the kid's like, yeah, you do. And I'm like, and I stopped and I looked in the mirror of, like, the apartment building, and it was like, one of the big windows on it. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of guess so, but trust me, I'm not a fucking cop. I'm like, I'm so-and-so's attorney, look. And he's like, oh, and I said, look, and I used my guy's, like, street name. That way they kind of realized, like, I knew. And, like, it's also his nickname his family gave him. So, like, it wasn't just common knowledge. And, like, that kind of got me in, and that allowed me to go make inroads. And then I ran into the guy's uncle, and he's like, oh, man, what's up? And then everybody realized I was cool. But, yeah, it you work with what you got there. I know that was a long way of going for it, but yes, the bill of particulars is very fucking important at times, especially when you have no fucking idea what's going on. Like, literally, so once I got that done, like, I told my client, and my client's like, oh, he's like, well, that's bullshit, let's go to trial. And I'm like, how about I work it out so you don't have to go to trial? And we got what we wanted. I got him what he wanted, so. So everybody call them shooting irons like in the 1800s. Is that you? I'm like, we can call it iron, a gat, toting a Roscoe, walking the dog, holding heat, whatever you want to call it. It's shooting irons. That's what guys that's a name in the hood. A heater, a gat, Glock, whatever you want to call it. But they're not called shooting irons. It's like dude's holding iron. The dude grabs the iron. Like, it all depends. So, staring contest of the prosecution. I mean, it kind of was like that. It was kind of like that. And J-Rock says, good work, I've been there. Yeah, I mean, this was like my first, like, murder thing that was like, we were going to have to fucking go to the mattresses. And I'm like, this is going to be, I was going to have to be doing some real lawyer shit. And I was like, you know, I enjoy those times, but this is one of those ones where it's like, you're playing for fucking keeps. And it was a felony murder case, so they could have done the death penalty for him. They weren't going to because it didn't warrant it ultimately, but he was eligible for it. I have an N-word pass. No, I do not. No, I do not. But when I was, you know, depending on where I'm at, there's, you know, well, as long as people remember me, I mean, there's for a while, like when I was in Toledo, there's certain, like, I could go through certain neighborhoods and I didn't have a problem. I could walk through a neighborhood and not have a problem because they knew who I was. They knew who I was, and they would leave me alone. I might even get away from a person or two. I mean, it just depends. Like, you do right by people, that they remember that. Do you have a partner named Jake? No. I'm not a process server. Do I look like I can run? Yeah, I act like I'm like fucking Vic Mackey out there. Yeah, that's exactly how I do it. I roll up in the Subaru, Blair and Reva. Yeah, no. Did I say skinny? It was more like skinnier. Skinnier. My client is Diddy. Don't be. If Diddy was my client, if Diddy was my client, I'd be using one of those fucking really good cameras like Ian Corzine uses when he's on, like, with Eric Hunley, where it's like the fucking, I don't know, one of those like $1,300 cameras. Like, I'd be using some good shit. And I'd be having like a whole soundboard, and I'd have a Jamie in here in the room running, like, pulling shit up for me. Yeah, Smoke Wagon, yeah. Kia Patrick says, toting a Roscoe, walking the dog. What the fuck are you people saying? You've never heard those terms for carrying a gun? You're walking the dog, toting a Roscoe. You're packing heat, holding an iron. Like, there's a million of those. Yeah, carrying a fucking strap. I mean, a lot of people out in the boondocks, a lot of white people, like out in the sticks where I grew up, this was called carrying. If you had a gun, you were carrying a strap because you had a strap of leather for your pistol belt. So you're carrying a strap. I mean, that's another one. I'll always be cool to us. And like, well, I appreciate that, but if you guys think I'm cool, you guys need to find other people that are cooler. So, yeah, having a switchy strap on. No. Yeah, there you go. Banger. Yep, a banger's a good one. A ventilator, a boomer. Yep. Instead of staying home, you went out and got into shit. Yeah, well, it's... I mean, to be fair, this last time around, there was a lot of phone calls, so I was, you know, either at home or in my car or driving around doing things. It wasn't like I was, you know, having to sit there and, like, you know, first, you know, it's like the guy's like, I'll only talk to you if you do a hit of this meth first. No, I was doing a lot of phone calls and I was meeting people here and there. So, yeah, but I appreciate that. The Ohio Rules of Criminal Procedure state a victim of crime can object to a negotiated plea rule. Yes, they can object to it, but that doesn't mean anything because ultimately it's not their fucking say what happens. I guess we'll bring it up. And that's because we have a Victim's Bill of Rights. And they're bullshit. They are bullshit, ultimately, in my opinion. But AD, don't panic when you see that because they're pleas and rights upon a plea. So here's the thing. When a negotiated plea happens, you have the right the victim has a right under Marcy's Law. And even then, before Marcy's Law went into effect in Ohio, the court would say, have you consulted with the victim? Are they in agreement with this? And what they'll say is, yes, Your Honor, they are. If they say no, they're not. So yes, the trial court shall allow an alleged victim of the crime to raise any objection. And the victim could say, Your Honor, I think this is bullshit. The guy stole my car. I want him doing 25 years breaking fucking rocks. You know, I lost my job because of this guy. So the court's not, you know, okay, but that's not the, and I've had to have this argument with fucking prosecutors before. Oh, well, the victim doesn't agree. And I got in trouble because I said this loud enough for the judge to hear me when he was sitting in his chambers, like 20 feet away. And I looked at the prosecutor and I said, it's not his. I said, it's your fucking job to make the plea. If he doesn't like it, fuck him. He's not the fucking end all be all. He's the victim. And I said, fuck him loud enough. I said, fuck his problems. You're the prosecutor. Make the fucking decision. And the judge heard me and he said, he came out when it became his time and we were at a pretrial and it's like, no, Your Honor, we're not reaching an agreement. He said, sounds like I may heard there may be some issues about whether the victim's driving the train in this situation. And sounds like to your consternation, Mr. Martin. And I realized he had heard me say all that. And I said, Your Honor, I apologize for the court for what I said. And he said, he said, I've been in your shoes before. He said, I totally understand it. He said, the rules were different when I was around and I didn't have to worry about that. Because he's an old timer. He's been a judge forever. That's his way of saying he was cool with it. But I'm like, oh fuck, he heard me say that. I've also had a case where the victim came in, we had an agreement, all of a sudden he shows up for the hearing. It's like, oh fuck this guy, rah, 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 and he fucking blew it up. Well, I ended up catching him later because we ended up reaching an agreement. I showed the court I showed the prosecutor he was a fucking liar about everything, and part of it was he came hobbling in one day like, oh, you're the defendant broke my knee, and then he came and hobbling the next time because I subpoenaed the court's camera. And he came in the next time saying, oh yeah, he hurt my knee, but he's hobbling the other knee, and I'm like, look, he's fucking with you. He's fucking lying about his injuries. So we got what we wanted out of it. Although, to be fair, my guy did beat the fuck out of him with a metal rod and really tuned him up. But we got what we needed out of it. He's getting out of jail anytime soon now. Carrie says, why is mayonnaise not on everything all the time, everywhere? Because we're not Holland or Canada. Mayo is pretty good overall, but... D says, Ayo, Justin Bieber came out and said P. Diddy and Will Smith paid him to eat their booties. No, he fucking did not say that. No, he did not. No. I don't buy that. That's a shame says, I was set for speedy trial, my first ever major felony next week. Dealing habitual offender, a 50-year max. Got an outright dismissal today. Fucking A right. That's some good shit. Did you were they scared of your Harry Potter stuff you were going to bring up? You're going to bring up like the Dumbledore defense or the Hufflepuff strategy. But no, seriously though, congratulations. That's fucking awesome. Those are, that's a fucking dub. You said we're going to trial and they back down. I mean, you threw a punk card down and they picked it the fuck up because they're like, I get, You said, fine, we'll go to trial. And they're like, well. Good job. Good fucking job. I won't toast you because this isn't alcohol, but, cheers. That's some good shit. I'm sure your client's thrilled. Because, yeah, they could theoretically charge him again later, but it's a dub. Dubs are dubs. On behalf of the black community, I'd like to give you the permanent key to the N-word. Thank you, Stabby. Yeah, you're the third guy today I met who thinks a gat in the hand means he's got the whole world by the tail. I've heard that before. I forget. I think it's a Mark Wahlberg movie where he's like, you think you're the only fucking guy in this world? You think you're the only bad guy in this world's got a gun? And he's beating the fuck out of another dude. He's pistol whipping him. He's like, you think that makes you the bad guy? I try to remember what fucking movie that is, but Sean wouldn't talk to us if his client was Diddy. Yeah, maybe. Sean gets a wave because they think he's Grimace. Yeah, well. Yeah. You should write a book and be Ohio's John Grisham. I can't write. Keith Patterson, I guess I'm too rural for all the slang. Well, what? Slang out in the boondocks? Dude, I grew up in the middle of fucking nowhere and we had slang. Had our own words. I've heard that, are you strapping? Yeah, are you strapped up? Yeah. Try to say Jake and the Fat Man. I didn't catch that. No, I did not. So. Chaucer Fraud says, I've never heard of Roscoe or walking the dog. I've heard people use the term, but I've never like had it talked. I've never heard anybody say it in parlance, like just talking, like, "Oh yeah, Steve's out walking the dog," or Steve walks up and says, "Yeah, I'm walking the dog today," or "I'm toting a Roscoe." So, Chaucer Fraud says, if someone who you are giving a ride to shoots someone and jumps in your car, what do you suggest they do? Obviously, you take the maniac wherever they want, but after, it's like, I mean, I would contact a lawyer and say, my buddy, like, I gave a friend a ride and he started fucking, like, drive-bying people. I want to go to the police and tell them everything. Like, talk to your lawyer about it. But yeah, I'd recommend that. And then hopefully your attorney's like, okay, we're going to go to the fucking police right away. And we'll work something out. But yeah, that's something you'd want to probably work on. Is paralegal a good job? I mean, it's like anything. I mean, how good are you at it? And, are you going to be able to link yourself up with somebody who's really good, too, and like a good attorney you're working with? I mean, some places could be good. I mean, Russell Greer's a paralegal. That doesn't necessarily mean shit. But yeah, if you can do it and there's a place you can work at, then yeah, it might be worth trying. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, in hindsight, would I recommend that if you're not sure you want to become a lawyer, go get a paralegal degree, and then, if you want to go do something else after that, fine. But at least you could do that, or work for a law. You work in a big law firm, you work in a small law firm. I mean, yeah, it's an option. It's available. My man was wearing an Harry Potter shirt when he got arrested. Do meth dealers like Harry Potter? I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't read Harry Potter, so I don't know. Thank you, chat. Isamaj saying, "Oh, I thought that was a big pun quote." No, but when I do the whole "it's so hard," it's just, yeah, that's a big pun thing. Oh shoot. Russell Gray is a tuxedo janitor, yeah. Acer Thorn, yeah, well, what about Acer Thorn? That's, I'm going to try to cover that coming up because now we've got 2 lawsuits of brewing on the farms. And Acer Thorn is suing the farms for kind of copyright infringement, but he's also trying to use Russell Greer's bullshit contributory infringement theory. And I'm gonna air some clips of stuff, and I'm sure Acer Thorn's gonna try to sue me next. But David, fucking get at me. I guess figure it out, son. The Northern District of Ohio does not tolerate faggots like you well. I will make sure you come out of this a vexatious litigant. Didn't realize you're 15 minutes behind. That's okay. It's all good. The Where Turkey just wants Knowles donations, yeah. Wasn't Acer Thorn suing someone else big in YouTube? Yeah, Sid Alpha. But he's also trying to sue fucking Google. So, there you go. But yeah, that'll be a fun one to go through because his complaint is, yeah, there's all kinds of, it's even worse because Acer Thorn stuff. I was thinking about doing a video on him just explaining vexatious litigant shit because, yes, he's an actual tard. He's a retard that's a paranoid schizophrenic too. Like he's fucking scary to people, like the average person. But it's like somebody, like comes to my house in the ring, just like that case out of Southern Ohio where the dude's kicking in the door on ring and he gets like zapped, and the dude, you hear the shots, it's just like boom, 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 right through the fucking door. And the dude just like, ah, as he does the fucking Vincent McMahon walk out to the parking lot and dies. You know, that'll happen. So, D says, so I got the video link where JB allegations are talked about. Locals watch along from Drama YouTube channel. Well, it's not like, so it's allegations, but there's no interview of like TMZ talking to Bieber and he's like, yeah, man, I was eating that shit like it was cereal. I mean, allegedly Jay-Z is kind of linked in this too a little bit, doing some of that gay stuff. And it's like, man, they all them cats want them fish sticks. So. James says, gonna admit it, in all the years I've considered, is the Lord of the Rings allegorical. It's a troll question. It was only recently I came to accept the holistic vision, which is Tolkien. Well, you should read Tolkien anyway, because it's interesting, like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were really good friends. And they talked to each other a lot about Christianity and faith, and you know, it was yeah, I'm not joking. Like, you know, it's like, you know, it's just very interesting how it works, because C.S. Lewis was Christian, Tolkien was Catholic, and how those things work together with them. And like, I'm not joking when I keep mentioning this book to you guys, and I don't, like, if you haven't read it, it is a very, very good book, because it's almost fucking prophetic what he foresaw happening in this world. But C.S. Lewis's book, The Abolition of Man, is fucking, like, you're going to read it and think he's a goddamn time traveler. That's all I'm going to say. And if you haven't read it, read the fucking Cliff Notes on it. And you'll want to read the book. I read it in college, and it was like, I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And now, 20 years later, I'm like, that motherfucker was onto something. So, AD says, Illinois pass a law to try and rein in forum shopping for challenges to state law. To Chicago and the state capitol. I assume that is problematic. I don't know. That's not necessarily like you're still giving people the proper forums. I don't know. I don't know if that would be, because you're giving people venue to challenge it in. I don't know if that's a problem. I don't know how Illinois' constitution is set up. I don't know if they allow for that. They might allow for that. It's not necessarily on its face. You know, you're not denying people the right to file suit. You're just saying you're going to have to file it in either, you know, Champaign or Chicago. And depending on how that's worked out, that may be acceptable. On its face alone, I don't see a constitutional issue with it. Yes, I'm still blown away by the amount of trash cans Diddy has, yes. He has 1 million fucking trash cans. That's a lot of dead hookers. Yes, Tolkien actually got Lewis to become religious, although he didn't want him... Yes, C.S. Lewis did not become Catholic like he wanted, but it was close enough. Yeah, there was a lot of... They did a lot of discussion with each other. And they were really good friends. It also, you know, they were World War I veterans. They were war buddies. You know, that's also a thing that kind of helped them bond together. Sky Queen says, is it hard to find a good PI to help you work on your cases? No, there's always good ones you can get recommended, other attorneys like and use, and they recommend them. It's just, it's not always a situation where I need one right away. When I'm still trying to figure stuff out, I'm going to be doing work on my own anyway, and I can do it. You know, the PI I can only get so much money aside for a PI who can only charge so much. But no, there's people were coming to me with information, so I was working with it. Tolkien was making the elves the moral superior race since they know very best. Yeah. Same liturgical forms, same sacraments. Yes. Yes. Not every case goes to some woke judge in Illinois, but that's a separate issue. I mean, that's not something you can work on there. Sweet Tooth, you're taking off. Have a good one. Good night. Thank you for being here. One is Catholic or one is nothing. Yeah, I agree. But when you say close enough to some of these, like to Lutherans, they get really, really fucking mad. Like, we're not close. Like, Sure, you're not. AD says, can the state get you to pay for your PI? I saw that in the rules of criminal procedure. Yeah. Yeah, like if you're if you're indigent, you can get money. I can petition if you're an indigent client, I can petition the court to get money for expert witnesses and also a private investigator. Now, I'm not going to be able to get that on every type of case. Like, let's say there's some bullshit, it's like a forgery case, a fifth-degree misdemeanor. Probably not. But for like a rape case, yeah. For a murder, yeah. For a robbery, yeah. For some of these, definitely. And getting experts, getting a psychiatrist, getting a handwriting expert, getting a ballistics expert, all those types of things. Yeah, there's going to be times where I can get those. And the state can be provided at the state's cost. Yep. Like Richard Allen should be getting, yes, that Judge Gull is denying. Which, like I said, I don't understand if that woman is just, like, what the fuck's her deal? And I don't know how judging cases happen in her place, but God almighty, I'd hate to practice in front of her on a routine basis. Sounds like she fucks everybody over. Yes, you're going to get an expert in rape. Yeah. And I haven't had a case where the state's brought on a rape expert, but I'd be like, so how many people have you raped? None. So how can you be an expert on rape without knowing rape? You were a detective. You became a narcotics detective, right? And you learned you learned to love and appreciate narcotics. Did you learn to love and appreciate rape? How can you really understand it? So, all right, guys. Well, it's 11 o'clock. Yeah, state calls El Touche to the stand. Yes. Could I get the Booty Warrior as a rape expert? Possibly. Oh. Lutheran churches are Catholic without all the heresy. No. Kneeling and only 2 sacraments. That's why they fail. Plus a longer Lord's Prayer. Nope. The Lutherans would not have defended the faith the way the Catholic Church did. You know, the Lutherans didn't go try to liberate the Holy Land. I'm just saying. I appreciate the super chat, though, ongoing hero, but let's be real. You know, when the Lutherans subjugating the New World, I rest my case with that. But Sean, the Lutherans were the church militant before they left. Not really. No. They like to think they were, but like their big rage quit was fucking nailing their 2 weeks notice on the fucking door. Fucking what kind of gauge? I'm leaving and I'm so mad. I'm gonna let you know I'm leaving. Hammer. My 95 bitchings. Yeah. Yes, there are 7 sacraments. Alfox says, yeah, well, neither did you. I know I didn't. But I roll with the people who did. I heard Penn State is an excellent rape doctorate program. Yes. Yes, more than the Lutherans left. And then what did they all do? They all started breaking off from each other because they all wanted to argue about whether you eat ice cream with a fork or a fucking spoon. Because that's really how much it breaks down. Then you get into like all these weird fucking things where it's like the Methodists and there's all these different Methodist offshoots and there's like different branches in each state and it's all a fucking joke. It's all a bunch of fucking hipsters. Yeah, I don't like you. I don't want to be part of your group anymore. I quit. I don't want to be part of your group anymore. I quit. Well, I don't want to be part of your group anymore. I quit. Weak. Tell that to Calvin. What did they do? They all came run over here. When I see the Catholics grow out of their murder phase, well, Because we did all the killing that needed to be done. We got done protecting Europe and then subjugating the New World. It wasn't going to be the Methodists conquering the Aztecs. Was not going to be the Methodists conquering the Aztecs. Or the Missouri Synod of the Lutherans going, you know, like, would you like to have a community dinner, Mr. Toltec leader? Lutherans felt it, yes. Catholics did the same thing from the Orthodox. Kind of maybe, but... What was that C.S. Lewis book again? The Abolition of Man. See if I can find it. Here we go. Let's see if I can find a copy of her. This is after he wrote the Screw Tape Letters. Which, that's a really good book. If you've never read it. And actually... Here's a good, The Abolition of Man. Here you are. So by C.S. Lewis. There's a bunch of different colors for the cover. So, yeah, we're gonna get, So this is this is it. You can buy it from Hillsdale College if you want to, but buy it on Amazon. But yes, it's The Abolition of Man. It's a really good book. Really good book. You'll be better off having read it. It's no road to serfdom, but it's good in its own right. Damn, I opened up a million tabs talking to you guys tonight. Holy shit. So the Catholics did the same thing from the Orthodox? Yeah, kind of a little bit. It's almost the Protestants needed a binding central authority, a pope figure, if you will. Yes. Yes. They all wanted to be papist deep down, but they just couldn't hack it anymore. Many crusades, some of which almost didn't fail. At least the Italians got some sweet trade deals out of it. Some of which almost didn't fail. We had the fucking Holy Land for a little while. You know, the Kingdom of Jerusalem. We had the Leper King. How much more do you want? What more do you want? You know, the Lutherans didn't liberate Spain. Yes, the Reconquista was not accomplished on the back of, Martin Luther or the Calvinists. What did the Protestants do? What was their crowning achievement? The 30 Years' War. That was their crowning achievement. Great. They couldn't even figure out how to go fight a war somewhere else, so they started fighting Catholics and other Protestants. Moravians for the win. At least you're not saying the Huguenots. Read Nietzsche. Yeah, Nietzsche's not bad to read, but you can read him, but like there's other people you can read along the way. I just bought Blood Meridian because I'm a tard. That's actually a good book. I like it. That could be done well. So there's an audiobook version on YouTube. Do you even read Locke? No, Chili, I don't read Locke. The Reconquista was successful. Yes, it was. But then Spain had a problem. Had all these guys who were like the conquistadors, those guys who went, were basically like Catholic ISIS. In the sense, those guys were fucking fanatical, devout, religious warriors. Like, they were down. They were DTF. And they had to do something with them. So part of the reason why they had the conquistadors was like, we got to get rid of these motherfuckers because a bunch of heavily armed, trained, and experienced fighters just hanging out in your country in that time was never a good idea. So it was kind of the concept of like, we need a forever war to keep them off our turf. So go conquer the New World. So yes, they went out there and conquered it. And that's part of the, like, that's not a joke. That was an issue for Ferdinand and Isabella. Like, we got to get rid of these motherfuckers. This ain't good. How's that Pope thing going for the Catholics? Hey, God is testing us with shitty popes right now. God is testing us. "30 Years' War where the actual winner was typhoid." Yeah. Locke is gay, reads Santa. Thomas Aquinas is never a bad choice. So, all right, guys. That is it for tonight. Got a lot done. Like I said, I thought this was a big thing to read and to get ready for it. Because this trial is going to progress at some point, and I think we'll have some more updates on this going forward. I think they're going to go to trial. I don't think the state's going to back down. I think this will be a fun one to cover. And it's just interesting to see. They fucked up twice. And it wasn't some, like, esoteric, like, gotcha. This is, like, the basic building block, the basic bitch stuff of, the Constitution and modern, constitutional law. And they fucked it up. So, yeah, big oopsie poopsies. So... And Bella, for 3 months, been a member, says, no one expects a Spanish Inquisition. They never do. No one does. Thank you, Bella, for your support. I appreciate it. So, guys, thank you to everybody out there on Twitter, Twitch. We're still on Twitch and YouTube. Guys, I promise it. I said I'll get Helldivers soon. Might try to play something this weekend for a little bit. Might stream on there. Play with some people. I think you can only do, like, 4-man teams, though, so it's kind of limited. But other than that, yeah, that's it. Rumble, guys, I've been having Rumble. Like, Rumble keeps fighting me, like, the past couple of streams. So I'm going to have to figure that out. Hopefully by tomorrow I can get that fixed. Because tomorrow, guys, is the Thursday night crime stream. Just like it is every Thursday. Because, God, it's almost Thursday again. We got a lot to cover. A lot to freaking cover. And that's not even covering, like, all the new stuff that's happened. But, like, we got Diddy's raid. Richard Allen getting snubbed on his experts. One of the KC parade guys was allegedly involved in a shootout in the Kansas City parade, is trying to sue a congressman. Trump's had some updates, not only just with his bond reduce, there's a gag order. The DOJ is using medical records to try to put together a red flag database. And Daniel Penny, the guy in New York City who choked out that dude, put him in the sleeper hold, is set to go to trial later this year in October. I don't know if we're going to get to see that. Kiwi Farms got sued again, and Carly Russell, that lady in Alabama who faked her kidnapping. Well, she got sentenced this week, and we'll talk about that. We got a couple other things too we'll probably throw in there, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern time, and we'll do that. Guys, the George Kelly case out of Arizona, we're going to start that probably on Friday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to start catching up on that and hitting it hard. So I do think that's going to be an interesting case. And, I should have had this going while I was talking about it because I'm an idiot. I don't do a good job at playing myself out. So we will be doing all of that. If you guys have any questions about things, you guys can always get a hold of me wherever. You guys know how to do that. So thank you, everybody here with your chats, your comments. Thank you, everybody at the super chats. And, guys in locals, I think things have been fixed on the good news. So, otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. Have a great night, guys.
Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops. Even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney.